Lu Ping used 12 golden energy pills to exchange for the Flame Coffin's mid-grade heaven-level spirit fire, the Red Lava Flame, as well as a Fire Phoenix clan secret technique, the Burning Sky technique. In terms of power, the Red Lava Flame might not be as powerful as the Scarlet Vulture Flame, but it was also a mid-grade heaven-level spirit fire. The Red Lava Flame was very easy to use in refining tools, and it was one of the most beloved flames of the refiners. As for the great technique, the Burning Sky technique, Lu Ping had heard from Lu Qiner that it was a basic great technique of the Fire Phoenix clan's secret technique, the art of flame rebirth. Usually, only those with the pure bloodline of the Fire Phoenix clan could practice this technique. Cultivators of other clans and human clans, who practice fire element techniques, would have their power reduced after practicing this technique. Lu Ping had just stored the Crimson Lava Flame in the jade box in his sleeve into his interspatial mystic treasure, and passed the Scorching Heavens Flame art to Lu Qiner, who was in the Golden House, when he heard Qin Shijun's laughter. "Brother Lu, you're next." Nearly 30 cultivators had taken turns on the stage since the start of the trade fair, and many of them were taking the stage for the second time. Now it was finally Lu Ping's turn. Lu Ping smiled faintly, stood up, and walked towards the stage. Many cultivators in the pavilion looked at the only North Sea cultivator, their eyes filled with various thoughts. They wanted to see if this person, who was touted as a sword immortal, would have any new treasures to show to them. Lu Ping's divine sense was very sharp. The moment he stood up, he sensed the strange atmosphere in the pavilion. He knew that if he didn't take out a treasure that could hold the fort, Qin Shijun and Yuan Feixiang's praises would soon be met with overwhelming mockery and ridicule from the crowd. On the stage, Lu Ping calmly took out a spirit restriction box from his storage artifact. After opening it, a colorful brilliance burst out of the box. Oh, it's a 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman. Although it's rare, it's only average in this trade fair. After all, it's still far from the treasure boy I imagined. It's already very good. It's just a medium-sized sect from the North Sea. To be able to take out 3 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans, at least their foundation is not bad. That's right. Most of the great sect's inheritances regarding the restriction-breaking talisman are only up to the 5-color talisman. Only those large sects with a long history and deep accumulation can collect the 6-color talisman inheritances. According to legend, the complete 7-color restriction-breaking talisman inheritance can only be found in the 6 great holy lands. Back then, the 7th Patriarch of Heaven Creation was the #1 talisman maker in the Luan Taoist. This 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman was passed down by her. Could it be that the Fire Luan, Wood Luan, and Wind Luan have not inherited the complete 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman? I don't think I've heard of it. In the pavilion, many Dharma adepts were whispering to each other. These 3 5-colored seal-breaking charms were created after Lu Ping entered the Dharma adept realm. With the help of his improved cultivation base, his charm crafting skills had improved, and he had painstakingly created them. Every talisman paper that could bear the weight of the 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman was a special item. Just like forging weapons, the creation of talisman paper was not easy. Although it was not as difficult as forging weapons, the process of creating talismans could consume a large amount of talisman paper. Lu Ping's talent in making talismans could only be considered above average, and he did not have the time to waste on creating talisman paper. The talisman paper that Lu Ping needed to create the 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman had all been obtained from the talisman pavilion. Therefore, 2 of the 3 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans that Lu Ping had created were considered items that belonged to the sect. Just based on the value of these 3 talismans, they were already above average among the treasures that had been displayed today. Although they were not considered outstanding, they were enough to prevent the cultivators who wanted to see Lu Ping make a fool of himself from being able to mock him. However, occasionally, a few disdainful looks would pass by Lu Ping's face, pretending that they did not care. There are 3 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans. I don't need to say much about their effects. The items that you need to exchange for them are also very simple. heaven and earth spirit items that are above mid-grade earth level, or supreme-grade spirit stones. Everyone is free to bid, but the final decision of the transaction lies in my hands. This was different from the blind bidding of the flame coffin. The flame coffin was unwilling to state what it needed, but Lu Ping limited the items that it needed to exchange to supreme-grade spirit stones and heaven and earth spirit items that were above mid-grade earth level. Although the cultivators below the stage would not reveal their prices, they did not need to use their spatial powers to secretly trade with Lu Ping. Although Lu Ping did not lack supreme-grade spirit stones, Lu Ping did. Now, with the rapid expansion of the sect, Zhenling was even more lacking in heaven and earth spirit items. After some selection, Lu Ping finally reached an agreement with the Dharma adept from the South Sea Talisman sect. This cultivator, who had previously fought with the Guangfa sect's cultivator, used a portion of supreme-grade spirit stones and several mid-grade earth-level spirit items to exchange for 3 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans from Lu Ping. Although the talisman sect was not like the East Sea's Purple Talisman Pavilion, which was purely based on the art of talismans, the art of talismans was also one of the foundations of the sect. Logically speaking, as a large sect, they should not be so interested in talismans like the 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans. Could it be that this sect did not even have the inheritance of the 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans? Just as this thought flashed through Lu Ping's mind, he heard a sarcastic sneer. The Guangfa sect's cultivator had indeed revealed the talisman sect's secret. Brother Xia, the dignified talisman sect has been a large sect for 3,000 years, and is considered to be famous in the world of cultivation. How could you not even have the inheritance of the 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans? You really do not deserve the name talisman sect. The talisman sect's cultivator's face flushed red, but in the end, he snorted coldly and did not refute. Seeing this, the cultivator immediately sneered again. After the transaction of the 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman was completed, the crowd then realized that Lu Ping was still standing on the stage and had not come down. It was obvious that there was still a second treasure to be traded. A trace of curiosity arose in their hearts. Could it be that this treasure boy still had another treasure to show to the crowd? Lu Ping took out a jade bottle from his storage instrument. Seeing the curious gazes of the crowd below the stage, Lu Ping did not open it immediately. Instead, he stretched out his right hand and drew lines of inner yuan in the air with his 5 fingers. These lines condensed into a bluish-purple talisman inscription in the air. Drawing talismans in the air, the 2 Dharma adepts from the Purple Talisman Pavilion and the Talisman sect were slightly taken aback. To be able to master such a secret talisman drawing technique, one must have reached a certain level of proficiency in talisman making. Furthermore, one must also have an extremely fine control over one's inner yuan and divine will to be able to do so. The 2 of them thought that they had already mastered the art of drawing talismans in the air long before they had advanced to the Dharma stage, so it was not that surprising. However, for Lu Ping to be able to draw such a detailed talisman in the air, and take such a long time to condense it, even if the 2 of them had already condensed their Dharma powers, they could barely do it. It was a far cry from Lu Ping's casual demeanor. It was not that the 2 of them were inferior to Lu Ping in talisman making. It was just that the density of their inner yuan and the level of their divine will were too low. The 2 of them could immediately tell that the talisman Lu Ping had drawn in the air was a forbidden talisman. It could temporarily open up a space in the air, and was usually used to display treasures that were not easily exposed to the outside world. A round, purple gold elixir rolled out of the jade bottle, and into the space opened up by the forbidden talisman. Qin Shijun suddenly stood up from his seat and stared at the elixir that was trapped in the forbidden talisman. He cried out involuntarily, "A purple gold longevity elixir that can extend one's life by 30 years." Lu Ping had carefully asked enlightened Xian Shun, enlightened Tian Laozu, Tian of Shui, and enlightened Xian of Daoist, and other formation and talisman. This wind drumming technique required at least a supreme secret technique. Zhenling's sect did have a few supreme divine abilities that were passed down in this way, but none of them were suitable to be converted into the wind drumming technique. Lu Ping's self-created Great River Flowing East Sword technique was possible, but unfortunately, the Great River Flowing East Sword technique, that had been modified and condensed in the Gentian Pearl, could only be regarded as a top-notch greatsword technique, far from a supreme secret technique. Hearing Qin Shijun's question, Lu Ping smiled and said, "I'm just preparing for a rainy day." Brother Qin came from the Crystal Palace, so you naturally don't know how long and complicated the process of building this treasure ship is. If we wait until the sect has 2 great cultivators before starting the construction, I'm afraid it may not be completed even after 200 to 300 years. Moreover, nowadays there are many sects in the overseas that are interested in becoming large sections. Which one of them doesn't have a treasure ship construction project? Qin Shijun was stunned by Lu Ping's words. He came from the Crystal Palace, which was a veritable holy land in the cultivation world. Its inheritance had always been at the top of the cultivation world, since the 7th patriarch opened the sky, so he naturally didn't know the difficulties of the other sections. He could only embarrassedly smile and didn't answer. In the cultivation world, the longevity pill was an extremely special existence. Normally, a 10-year longevity pill was already very precious. A 15-year longevity pill not only required the 10,000 wonder dew, but it was also not a small challenge, even for highly skilled alchemy grandmasters. A 20-year longevity pill was something that an alchemy grandmaster still had a little bit of confidence in. However, if it was a 30-year longevity pill, even an alchemy grandmaster would have to rely on luck to successfully refine it. A 30-year longevity pill was enough for a sect to overcome the predicament of a lack of successors. A 30-year longevity pill was enough for a Dharma adept, who was on the verge of passing away, to have a chance to break through the bottleneck of his cultivation and welcome another extension of his lifespan. At the very least, it would be enough for him to calmly arrange his own inheritance. A 30-year longevity pill was enough for a sect to pass on its legacy for 10,000 years. Just as Lu Ping and Qin Shijun were conversing, the platform in front of Lu Ping had already flashed with the light of several space magic powers. 4 or 5 jade scrolls flashed out of the space channel and landed on the platform. Lu Ping smiled at Qin Shijun and began focusing on the general contents of the jade scrolls. Qin Shijun was slightly taken aback. Then he slowly sat down, a calm expression on his face. It was unknown what he was thinking. After a while, a faint spatial fluctuation spread out from Qin Shijun's body. However, the surrounding cultivators did not notice it at all. Lu Ping checked several jade scrolls in succession that contained the records of the wind-face drumming technique. He could not help but feel disappointed. It was not that there was something wrong with these legacies. Rather, it was because these legacies were clearly from the great sects in the endless seas. After thousands, or even tens of thousands of years, the contents of these legacies had been engraved with the legacy system of the respective sections. Although Zhenling could use them, it was inevitable that there would be many areas that would go against the legacy system of Zhenling. Spending a great deal of effort to make changes was a small matter. However, he was worried that doing so would weaken, or even affect the ability of the treasured ship. Suddenly, the space channel in front of the platform opened up once more, and a purple-colored jade scroll fell into Lu Ping's hand. Lu Ping sensed something, and he raised his head to look at Qin Shijun. He happened to see Qin Shijun giving a slight nod to Lu Ping. Lu Ping's heart gave a thump, and his divine sense invaded the jade scroll to check its contents. A trace of shock flashed across his face, but he quickly recollected himself. Next, he returned all the other jade scrolls except for this one. Then, he placed the purple gold longevity pill into the jade essence bottle. Following the transmission imprint on the jade scroll, he sent the jade essence bottle over. Many of the cultivators in the audience who were interested in the purple gold longevity pill could not help but reveal looks of disappointment. Qin Shijun, who was not far away, revealed a faint smile at Lu Ping. As for Lu Ping, he had already calmly walked down the platform. Lu Ping held a jade scroll tightly in his hand. This jade scroll was naturally what Qin Shijun used to exchange for the purple gold longevity pill. A bluish-purple brilliance flashed in his hand, and the inheritance imprint and restriction on the scroll were all broken. The complete content of the windward drumming technique appeared in Lu Ping's mind. Indeed, the content of this inheritance had too many similarities with the inheritance system of Zephyr Sect. This was simply the windward drumming technique that was inherited from Zephyr Sect's treasure ship. The destruction of Zephyr Sect was indeed inextricably linked to the Crystal Palace. When Zephyr Sect was destroyed, its inheritance was scattered and obtained by many sects in the North Sea. After more than 4,000 years of running in, almost all the sects in the North Sea were more or less stained with the inheritance of Zephyr Sect. If there was a sect whose inheritance had the least pain when it merged with Jinling's inheritance system, then it was undoubtedly Zephyr Sect. Moreover, the wreckage of the treasure ship that Jinling obtained was simply something that belonged to Zephyr Sect in the past. As soon as Lu Ping returned to his seat, Chu Haitian, who was at the side, smiled bitterly and said, "Brother Lu, you really hid it from me for a long time." Lu Ping naturally knew what he was referring to, so he smiled and said, "If I had brought up the Wonder Dew at that time, it would have inevitably given the impression that the nobles had ulterior motives." Chu Haitian laughed and said, "Then why are you so frank now, Brother Lu?" Lu Ping said directly, "I still have a portion of Wonder Dew here. You don't have to worry about the spirit-attracting pill's medicinal catalyst." Chu Haitian's expression only relaxed for a moment, but he immediately put on another thought. Very soon, it was Chu Haitian and Chu Haitian's turn. The two of them had originally prepared a lot of treasures, just for the Wonder Dew. Now that the Wonder Dew had been obtained, the two of them went up to the stage one after another, and exchanged a series of treasures, for a variety of spiritual herbs, that were more than 3,000 years old, spiritual objects, and other things needed to refine the spirit-attracting pill. In order to confuse the public, they naturally mixed in a large number of other treasures. Although the two of them exchanged for a lot of items, the quality was undoubtedly inferior to the items displayed by the other cultivators in this trade fair. However, the two of them were born in the green sea snakes, so no one dared to question them. Even Qin Shijun was silent at the side at this time. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the two of them exchanged for a large number of rare spiritual herbs, must have something to do with Chu Tianyu Laozu, who was seriously injured, and whose cultivation was on the verge of collapse. However, with so many spiritual herbs, no one could guess what method the green sea snakes were going to use. Only the flame spirit coffin's expression was a little ugly at this time, and it frequently looked suspiciously at Lu Ping. The trade fair was still going on, and there was no lack of high-quality treasures on display. There were even many treasures that tempted Lu Ping. Unfortunately, Lu Ping tried to bid several times, but he was unable to obtain them. At the end of the trade fair, Qin Shijun set off the climax of the trade fair with a companion spiritual treasure. Unfortunately, this companion spiritual treasure was not suitable for Lu Ping. Lu Ping also tried to bid for it, but in the end he still missed it. After the trade fair ended, the cultivators of the various sects left one after another. However, everything that happened at the trade fair quickly spread throughout the 5 Phantom Islands. Chapter 1076. After Lu Ping had summoned the lightning for the water spirit sword, the sword itself had become invisible. However, Lu Ping's divine will was still able to clearly capture the position of the water spirit sword. The water spirit sword was different from the other spirit treasures that had been modified to undergo lightning strikes. The water spirit sword itself was an extremely high-quality spirit-nurturing treasure. After fusing with a spirit treasure that had an invisibility effect, the quality of the water spirit sword had been greatly improved. After passing through the lightning strikes, it would not be like the other modified spirit treasures that had a weak weapon spirit and would not be able to improve further in the future. An invisible flying sword would not be able to escape the tracking of the lightning strikes, nor would it be able to evade them. This was due to the quality of the water spirit sword itself and its spiritual nature being fully activated. 6 bolts of lightning struck consecutively, but they were not able to break the water spirit sword from its invisible state. Instead, The space around the water spirit sword was split into pieces, as if it was about to be sucked into the broken space. A few hundred feet away from Lu Ping, Zhenling's remaining 30 or so core forging adepts were watching this rare spirit treasure lightning strike from afar. Over this period of time, the 5 islands of the Zhenling sect had experienced spirit treasure lightning strikes several times. There had even been Dharma adepts who had risked their lives to seek out Dharma heavenly tribulations in order to forcefully advance. However, this was the first time many Zhenling adepts were witnessing a lightning strike from such a close distance. Tian Kong Laozu had already hidden himself far away from the Dharma adepts. Whether it was the spirit treasure lightning strikes, or the Dharma adepts' lightning strikes, the Dharma adepts who were not involved had to stay far away to avoid being caught in the crossfire. There was an explosion in the sky, and the 7th tribulation lightning fell. It was like a blue snake rushing down from the sky, swallowing the void. Then, its entire head exploded, and a blue flying sword was blasted hundreds of feet away from where it was hiding. Countless streams of light began to flash on the aqua-blue sword. After a while, the water spirit sword's body began to become mottled. Part of the sword returned to nothingness, while the rest of the sword remained aqua-blue. From afar, it looked as if the air had been dyed with circles and patches of blue ink. There was a cry of alarm from afar. Clearly, the water spirit sword had been damaged by the 7th bolt of lightning. Lu Ping's expression did not change, as his majestic divine will entered the water spirit sword. At this time, the hidden spiritual nature of the water spirit sword had already accumulated to a critical point. Once it passed the lightning strike, the spiritual nature of the water spirit sword would be refined by the pure yang qi, and finally become a sentient weapon spirit. The spirit treasure's lightning strike also needed the spirit treasure itself to pass. Although Lu Ping was the owner of the water spirit sword, he could only use his divine will to stimulate the spiritual nature of the spirit treasure, so that it could recover as quickly as possible from the lightning strike. The circles and patches of the blue sword in the air gradually shrank until they disappeared. Just as the Zhenling adepts were about to relax, there was a flash of lightning in the sky, and a bolt of lightning had already descended with a deafening explosion. Once again, it accurately located the water spirit sword in the air. The netherwater sword was sent flying once again. This time, it was clearly even more heavily damaged. The entire sword's body constantly alternated between aqua blue and colorless. At one moment, only the hilt and the tip of the sword remained, and at another moment, several parts of the sword's body were missing, and the tip was revealed. At the same time, sparks would occasionally explode on the sword's body, appearing extremely strange. Lu Ping took a deep breath and used his divine will to connect with the spiritual nature of the water spirit sword once again. Lu Ping could clearly sense the faint fear coming from the spiritual nature of the water spirit sword. It was obvious that the water spirit sword was about to transform. However, if he could not completely stimulate the spiritual nature of the water spirit sword and maximize the potential of the sword, once this spiritual nature was destroyed by the lightning strike, the water spirit sword's attempt to become a spirit treasure would be in vain. Even if he was lucky enough to succeed, the water spirit sword's body and artifact spirit would be severely injured, and it would be impossible for it to improve further in the future. Lu Ping's divine will began to calm and guide the spiritual nature of the water spirit sword as much as possible. At the same time, a pure yang qi that Lu Ping had refined was channeled into the sword through Lu Ping's divine will. After the spiritual nature of the water spirit sword was enveloped by the pure yang qi, it rapidly shrunk like snow in the sun. However, it did not disappear. Instead, it became more concentrated and condensed. At the same time, it began to slowly absorb the pure yang qi and fuse with it. The 9th bolt of tribulation lightning finally descended. The entire spirit-gathering island seemed to tremble amidst the deafening sound of thunder. The 9th bolt of tribulation lightning was much larger than the previous 8 bolts. Only a thin strand of lightning tore through the void and landed on the body of the water spirit sword. However, it disappeared into the water spirit sword. Zhenling and the other cultivators looked at each other. However, Lu Ping knew that the power of this lightning strike might not be too great for the water spirit sword. However, it was the most critical moment for the spiritual nature of the magic treasure, which was at the critical moment of its transformation into an artifact spirit. After this fine lightning entered the sword, it directly disintegrated the condensed spirituality. Rich pure yang qi exploded from the tribulation lightning, annihilating the spirituality of the magic treasure that had already dissipated in the sword. However, at this critical moment, the scattered spiritual nature was actually able to resist the invasion of the first yang qi. Instead, it gradually began to condense again. Seeing this, Lu Ping finally breathed a sigh of relief. The most dangerous stage had been passed. It was only a matter of time before the water spirit sword became a spirit treasure. Once the artifact spirit was formed, Lu Ping would be able to use the invisible sword technique to control this flying sword. It would be equivalent to Lu Ping grasping his third supreme destiny power. The surrounding cultivators of Jinling had been uneasy when they saw the ninth lightning strike disappear into the sword. However, when they saw the relaxed expression on Lu Ping's face, they knew that the water spirit sword had completely overcome the ninth lightning strike. They immediately cheered. At this moment, Lu Ping's divine will moved, and a green light flashed in his eyes. He looked in the direction of the water spirit sword, and saw a 7 or 8-year-old boy hanging from the hilt of the water spirit sword with both hands. Seeing Lu Ping look over, the boy loosened his hands and fell from the water spirit sword. A blue light flashed across his body, and he immediately appeared before the eyes of the Jinling cultivators. Artifact spirit, it must be an artifact spirit. This was the first time many of the Jinling cultivators had seen the true appearance of a spirit treasure, and they all began to clamor. The boy waved at the crowd, and then grinned at Lu Ping. Invisible boy greets master. Lu Ping saw that the invisible boy was chubby and cute, and knew that the quality and spiritual source of the water spirit sword had not suffered too much damage during the process of becoming a spirit treasure. So he nodded and smiled. Although the spirit treasure calamity this time was more daunting than dangerous, you should recuperate and recover as soon as possible. Stay in the core space for this period of time. The Jinling cultivators were still gathered in the distance, unsatisfied, but Lu Ping had already left. In the secret chamber of the Green Sea Snakes' camp on Chengling Island, Chu Haitian congratulated Lu Ping. Lu Ping has gained the help of another spirit treasure, which is like adding wings to a tiger. If I were to fight with Brother Lu again, I'm afraid I would be left in the dust. Lu Ping smiled. Brother Chu, you don't mean what you say. The aura around you is turbulent now, and it's obvious that you're only one step away from advancing to the middle Dharma stage. Once your Dharma power condenses pure yang qi, I'm afraid I'll have to admit defeat. After the two of them exchanged pleasantries, Chu Haitian handed a storage bag to Lu Ping and said, Brother Lu, I'll leave the matter of the spiritual water elixir to you. 13th uncle said that regardless of whether the elixir refinement is successful or not, the green sea snakes will owe Brother Lu a favor. Lu Ping also said seriously, I'll try my best. Chu Haitian hesitated for a moment and said, Brother Lu, what is it that you're still unwilling to say? Lu Ping smiled and waved his hand to form a few seals. An isolation restriction enveloped the entire secret room. He then stretched his hand to open a space door, and 3 youths around the age of 14 or 15 walked out from the door. A natural reaction from their bloodline caused Chu Haitian to jump up. Looking at the 3 youths in front of him, Chu Haitian suddenly turned to look at Lu Ping and said coldly, Brother Lu, what's going on? You have to give me an explanation. After the Samling walked out of the House of Gold, the sense of intimacy from their bloodline made the 3 of them look at Chu Haitian curiously. This kind of reaction from their bloodline was even more intimate than when Samling had first met Chu Hailan. However, after seeing Chu Haitian's reaction, the Samling all stood behind Lu Ping. However, with regards to Chu Haitian's state, which was like a dormant volcano, Samling did not have the slightest hostility. Instead, they all made their stand clear. Lu Ping's expression was calm, as if he had already expected such a reaction from Chu Haitian. Seeing that Lu Ping was calm, Chu Haitian's divine sense had already circled around Samling's body. It seemed to be confirming Samling's identity, as well as investigating some other things. After a while, Chu Haitian seemed to have discovered something, and only then did he seem to calm down a little. At this time, Lu Ping opened his mouth and introduced, I personally hatched these 3 children with my own essential vitality. They are my adopted son and daughter, Lu Bai, Lu Hai, and Lu Ling Er. After saying that, Lu Ping turned back to Sam Ling and said, Bai Er, Lu Hai, Ling Er, the 3 of you come and greet the senior cultivators of our clan. Chu Haitian calmly accepted the 3's greetings, and then said seriously, Do the 3 of you know that in your bloodline flows the pure bloodline of the green sea snake? You should all be surnamed Chu. After saying that, he stared at Lu Ping. However, Lu Ping remained calm, while the Samling behind him said in unison, We will follow our father's surname. Chu Haitian's face was cold, and he said to Lu Ping, Brother Lu, do you know what you are doing? You are secretly hiding the people of the green sea snakes. Chapter 1077. In the secret room of the green sea snakes' base on Chungling Island, which was originally prepared for Lu Ping to use for alchemy, Chu Haitian looked at Samling, who was standing behind Lu Ping, with a gloomy expression. After a while, Chu Haitian suddenly said, Brother Lu, how can you be so confident that I won't tell my uncle and 6th grandfather? Lu Ping smiled and said, Chu Hailan, you believe in Chu Hailan? Chu Haishao was taken aback. Lu Ping's answer was clearly out of his expectations. However, he quickly suppressed his anger and said coldly, I thought you've guessed it. It's because you didn't place a divine sense seal on the 3 children. Lu Ping's answer surprised Chu Haishao. Chu Haishao's answer was out of his expectations, but he quickly suppressed his anger and said coldly, I thought you've guessed it. Lu Ping could see that Chu Haitian was a little angry out of humiliation, so he said with a smile, Brother Chu, please don't blame me. Maybe this is a little embarrassing for you, but I don't think it's difficult to talk about the matter between you and fellow Taoist Hailan. Besides, fellow Taoist Hailan has already mentioned the reason you mentioned before. Chu Haitian said coldly, What do you know? She could have been anyone's fiancé, but it had to be my dead cousin. At this time, Lu Ping had already seen that he seemed to have oversimplified the matter between the 2, so he didn't interrupt. Chu Haitian restrained his expression and looked at Samling, who was behind Lu Ping. He seemed to have thought of something and asked, You want these 3 kids to become your followers and enter the secret place of inheritance of the green sea snakes? Lu Ping nodded and said, Exactly. This is also fellow Taoist Hailan's intention. It seems that there has been such a precedent in your family. Chu Haitian said nothing. After a while, he turned to the Samling behind Lu Ping and said, You 3 come here. When Samling saw Lu Ping nod at them, he walked up to Chu Haitian and saw Chu Haitian stretch out his right hand in front of them. Samling seemed to have a telepathic connection. They each placed their palms on top of Chu Haitian's palms. A deep blue light immediately emerged from Chu Haitian's palms and slowly seeped upwards, dyeing Samling's palms blue. Both Chu Haitian and Samling closed their eyes. Chu Haitian looked calm, but Samling seemed to be enduring something. Lu Ping was silent, but he could see that Samling seemed to be receiving some kind of inheritance from Chu Haitian. After a while, Chu Haitian suddenly opened his eyes. A pale color flashed across his face, and he breathed a sigh of relief. Samling also opened his eyes and withdrew his palms from Chu Haitian's hands. Chu Haitian said solemnly, Always remember, you are the noble green sea snakes. What flows in your bodies is the direct bloodline of Jiao Daoren. Chu Haitian paused and then said, The things that you have just received are different, but they are all the secrets of the green sea snakes. In the future, only your own bloodline can be inherited. Other than that, you can't reveal it to anyone else. After saying that, he glanced at Lu Ping and added, The same goes for the people you follow. Samling nodded solemnly, and then returned to stand behind Lu Ping. Lu Ping was a little surprised. Brother Chu, is this? Chu Haitian shook his head and said, This is just a greeting gift from the elders to the juniors. The secrets of the green sea snakes are as vast as the sea. How can it be so easy for them to get it? However, the things that I just gave them are enough for them to condense their gold elixir and achieve the Dharma power. As for the things after achieving the Dharma power, Brother Lu, it's up to you. Seeing Lu Ping's surprised look, Xu Haitian laughed and said, "Brother Lu, you don't think that Sister Hailan asked me to come to you just to help these three little guys enter the secret inheritance place of the green sea snakes, do you?" Although Lu Ping didn't answer, his expression clearly indicated that he was certain of his answer. "It's not that easy," Xu Haitian continued. "In fact, Sister Hailan's real purpose is probably the things that I can pass on to the three little guys, so that she can buy you more time." "Time? Yes, it's time. So that, Brother Lu, you have time to accumulate your own foundation, so that you can pass the test of the green sea snakes in the future." "Test?" Xu Haitian laughed and said, "Brother Lu, you can't be thinking that as long as our tribe recognizes the Samling's follower, you can take away the Samling who has entered the secret inheritance place." Naturally, Lu Ping would not have such a thought. Xu Haitian naturally knew that as well, so he continued to explain, "Brother Lu, you already know that there have been great sorcerers in history who have been followed by cultivators from the green sea snakes. But do you know who these so-called great sorcerers are?" Without waiting for Lu Ping to answer, Xu Haitian continued, "There are actually only 6 so-called great sorcerers. 2 of them have a deep relationship with our tribe, but they are also great sorcerers in the late Dharma stage. The other 4 were recognized by the green sea snakes at the pure Yang Laozu stage, and 2 of them even became real souls in the future." Lu Ping pondered for a moment, then asked curiously, "Brother Chu, you should be from the water snake tribe, right? Just now you were able to give Samling different inheritances. It seems that my understanding of what Brother Hailan said might not be wrong. It is indeed possible that you have found a complete inheritance for Samling." Xu Haitian looked at Lu Ping and said, "It is not an exaggeration to say that. The green sea snakes can be roughly divided into 6 branches. If he used the 10,000 wonder dew as the spiritual water to refine the pill, he might be able to increase the success rate of the pill." After thinking about it, Lu Ping took out a jade essence bottle from his storage magic tool. He opened the bottle stopper, and a fragrance immediately broke through the monopoly of the soul-nourishing incense on the smell of the secret chamber. The bottle contained the purple crystal royal jelly. 3 days later, the rich pill fragrance could not even be confined in the secret chamber. It lingered over the entire station, alarming all the green sea snakes in the station. At the last moment of the pill's completion, the rich fragrance could not even envelop the station of the green sea snakes. It spread to the entire Qingling Island with the wind. In front of the central room of the green sea snake station, Chu Fuyu, Chu Tianyu, and Chu Yu were looking in the direction of the strong fragrance. It was the secret chamber, where Lu Ping was refining the spirit water spirit guiding pill. Chu Fuyu Laozu suddenly turned his head and asked, "What do you think?" Chu Yu wrinkled his nose and said, "It looks like it's going to succeed. It's not easy." Chu Fuyu smiled and said, "Are you talking about the person or the alchemy technique?" Chu Yu smiled and said, "Of course I'm talking about the person. Although the spirit water spirit guiding pill is rare, it was passed down by Jiao Laozu in the past. However, even if this person's alchemy technique is not as good as Yin Wujiao's, I'm afraid it's not far from it. At least I can't compare with him." Chu Tianyu's face was still pale, but he frowned slightly at this time and said, looking at the soaring fragrance, "I'm afraid the matter of alchemy can't be hidden anymore. With the flame coffin's perverse temper, our tribe is naturally not afraid of it. If it brings trouble to the sect of the little guy who is refining the pill, it's a little unreasonable." Chu Fuyu smiled and said, "It's okay, the old man will naturally pay attention." Chu Tianyu nodded and said no more. In the secret chamber, the Nachuan cauldron opened, and a dark blue pill escaped from the furnace, but it was caught by a big hand of spiritual energy that had been waiting outside the furnace. "I hope you won't be disappointed." Lu Ping put the pill into the jade essence bottle, and then waved his hand to put away the remaining spiritual herbs, furnace, and wonder jade dew. Jinling's core forging stage cultivators were only left with a dozen or so people who could still fight. Even so, Zhenling sect's losses were considered light compared to the other sections. At the very least, Zhenling sect's 2 Dharma adepts were unharmed. Moreover, The remaining 10 or so core forging adepts who could still fight had improved greatly in terms of their cultivation and abilities after going through more than half a year of life and death training. In addition, they had collected essence from killing Mo Luo and used it to create elixirs, which greatly alleviated the shortage of cultivation resources for these practitioners. In just half a year's time, 7 people from Jinling had achieved breakthroughs in their cultivation. Many of them had advanced to the 4th or 7th stage of the core forging stage. Among them, Yao Yong had successfully advanced to the 9th stage of the core forging stage. Although Xian Peng, who had lost an arm, had lost a lot of his strength, he had stubbornly pushed his cultivation to the late stage of the core forging stage. Of course, these rapid improvements in cultivation were not limited to Jinling alone. The cultivators of the entire 5 Phantom Islands had also experienced a great increase in their cultivation. In the encampment of Jinling, Laozu asked with a serious expression, "Is the information you received reliable?" Lu Ping thought about it and nodded. Chu Haitian would not lie about this matter. Previously, I had received hints from Chu Fuyu, the Flame Coffin, and the others that their 2 clans have always had a channel to communicate with the outside world. Tian Kong Laozu guessed with some uncertainty. To be able to maintain contact with the outside world under the siege of Mara's army, I'm afraid even a great practitioner would not be able to do this. Could it be the pure young Laozu? Have you asked Chu Haitian and the others personally? Lu Ping nodded and said, "After that, I asked them directly." Chu Haitian did not give me a direct answer, but he revealed 2 pieces of information to me. The first is that the overseas sects are already planning to counterattack the fallen secret land. The second is that a group of Mara has already gathered outside the fallen secret land and is besieging the encampment of the Northern Alliance, Qianyuan City. Tiankong Laozu nodded thoughtfully and said, "It seems that whether it is the East Sea, the North Sea, or the South Sea, the disaster of Mara must have been alleviated to a certain extent. Otherwise, the overseas sects would not have been able to mobilize forces to support the fallen secret land. However, the siege of Qianyuan City is a little strange. After all, the Northern Alliance is a large sect in the East Sea, second only to the Crystal Palace. How could they be so easily besieged by Mara?" Lu Ping reminded him. "Elder, before this, Mara's army gathered to invade the fallen secret land. 1/3 of the Northern Alliance's territory was swept away, and several Dharma adepts perished. In this battle of Phantom City, Laozu was assassinated. The remaining Northern Alliance adepts originally had 1 mid-Dharma adept, 2 early Dharma adepts, and 3 Dharma adepts. But now, I heard that there is only 1 mid-Dharma adept who is severely injured. The other 2 early Dharma adepts died in battle, while defending against Mara's attack. One of them was even a 3rd-generation elite adept of the Northern Alliance." Tiankong Laozu was stunned and said, "Are you saying that the Northern Alliance will be abandoned by the Crystal Palace and the other major sects? This is somewhat impossible. You must know that the Northern Alliance has at least 2 great Dharma adepts. With thousands of years of history, it will not be so easy to destroy them." Lu Ping seemed to be troubled by this problem as well. After a while, Lu Ping suddenly said, "Perhaps this disaster of Mara is an opportunity for the various sections. It could even be a conspiracy that they have set up." At the same time, in a secret place in Phantom City, Yuan Feixiang was sitting quietly in a secret room. Suddenly, Yuan Feixiang slowly opened her eyes and said to a place of nothingness, "Mr. has returned." The seal in the secret room flickered with runes. Gradually, some of the runes faded away, while others shone brighter and formed a temporary teleportation circle. If Lu Ping was here, he would certainly be shocked, because the formation of this teleportation circle was almost the same as the one left by Kongwu Laozu in the Spirit Stone Mine on Yuanling Island. The teleportation circle flickered with white light, and Mr. Wen's figure appeared from the white light. He looked at Yuan Feixiang and said, "Greetings, young master. How is it? The seal has been blocked. The people of the Crystal Palace and Green Sea Snake shouldn't be able to find us. But it's hard to say who is inside the heavenly wall of myriad poisons." Yuan Feixiang heaved a sigh of relief and said, "It doesn't matter. That person won't take action, as long as we don't go too far inside the heavenly wall of myriad poisons. Moreover, he has never left the heavenly wall of myriad poisons, so there shouldn't be any hidden dangers. Mr. Wen nodded and said, "This old servant has also received a piece of news. It seems that the overseas cultivators of the human and demon races have joined hands to launch a counterattack on the fallen secret domain." Yuan Feixiang didn't care about this. She smiled and said, "This is expected. The siege of the 5 Phantom Islands has lasted long enough. The overseas cultivators must have been relieved by the invasion of Mara's disaster. The 5 Phantom Islands can be said to be an important base for the overseas cultivators, so they can't wait any longer. There is one more thing that the young master may be interested in. Oh! The 6 Meridian Sword Immortals of the Purple Sun Palace, the 5 Great Jizi of the Wuxing School, the 9 Profound Tower Masters, the Lingyun Valley's 7 Rainbow Lights, the Skyward Pavilion's 8 Pavilion Masters, and the Spirit Beast Sect's 3 Empyrean Walkers have stirred up a great storm in the Middle Earth. They've made a great name for themselves." Chapter 1079. In the Phantom City, Lu Ping once again came to the courtyard where Rongxi Laozu lived. "Taoism friend Tianping, are you here for the thin water-flowing sword?" Rongxi Laozu seemed to have expected that Lu Ping would come today. She was busy in the past, but today she was sitting quietly in the room. Lu Ping bowed slightly and said, "Junior came in a hurry and disturbed Senior." "No problem." Rongxi Laozu stretched out her hand, and a pair of flying swords flew out from the back of the house. Before they reached Rongxi Laozu, the pair of flying swords suddenly turned and flew towards Lu Ping. They hovered around Lu Ping's body and made a cheerful sound. The moment the thin water-flowing sword flew past, Lu Ping could feel that the thin water-flowing sword was different from before. This feeling was the same as when the nether water sword had fused with the life-bound spiritual treasure. But this feeling was even stronger. It was like a river that had been blocked and was just waiting for the moment to break through its shackles. Lu Ping put away the thin water-flowing sword and thanked sincerely. "Junior is really sorry to trouble Senior twice," Rongxi Laozu said with a smile. "Although this pair of flying swords is not as novel as the previous invisible sword, the foundation of this pair of flying swords is far better than the previous invisible sword. After smelting the coral exotic gold, its quality has been greatly improved. In the future, even if you summon the second spiritual treasure Thunder Tribulation, you don't need to collect rare treasures to improve its quality. You only need to focus on nourishing it with your Jinqi and purifying it with divine thoughts, and you have some confidence to survive the Thunder Tribulation." Lu Ping nodded, but he heard Rongxi Laozu say again, "Don't rush to summon the Thunder Tribulation. Focus on nourishing it with your Jinqi for a period of time. When this pair of flying swords is in harmony with your body and mind, it is not too late to summon the Thunder Tribulation." After bidding farewell to Rongxi Laozu, Lu Ping got up and went to a trading market in the west of Phantom City. Lu Ping slightly concealed his appearance and cultivation base. He was now a celebrity on the 5 islands, so he didn't want to attract the attention of many cultivators in the market. However, a simple concealment technique wouldn't be able to fool cultivators in the same realm, so he wouldn't attract unnecessary attention. The 5 illusory islands had been besieged for close to a year now, and they had lost more than a third of their cultivators. Now, be it the humans or demons, almost all the Dharma adepts could recognize each other. If Lu Ping really concealed his own cultivation level and appearance to the point that even adepts of the same level would not be able to recognize him, he would instead attract even more attention because he looked unfamiliar. He immediately said, "I am ashamed to say it, but I have something to ask of Lu Daoyu." Lu Ping's expression didn't change. He suddenly said, "Is it because of Senior's injury?" The middle-aged cultivator smiled bitterly and said, "As expected of an alchemy grandmaster, I can't hide it from fellow Taoist." After a humble, "I don't dare," Lu Ping didn't say anything else. The middle-aged cultivator hesitated for a moment before saying, "Then I won't beat around the bush. I believe Lu Daoyu has some understanding of my current situation." The Northern Alliance participated in the Battle of Phantom Island. There were 4 Dharma adepts and nearly 100 core forging adepts. Now, Uncle Master Chui has been assassinated and 2 of his nephews have also fallen in the battle with Mara's army. The remaining disciples are either dead or scattered. I am the only one left, but I am also seriously injured. I believe fellow Dao Yu has some understanding of these matters. Lu Ping nodded and didn't say anything. The middle-aged cultivator continued. Now, the few alchemy grandmasters on Phantom Island are all from the major sections. Now, I am afraid that the major sects have already targeted the Northern Alliance. Naturally, they won't treat my injury. Therefore, I can only ask for fellow Taoists' help. I hope that fellow Taoists can help me. The Northern Alliance will reward me greatly in the future. Lu Ping laughed involuntarily and said, If I treat Senior's injury, does Senior Lin think that the Northern Alliance will have a chance to thank me in the future? The middle-aged cultivator was startled. Then, he thought of something and said with a deep sadness, Does Lu Daoyu already know something? Lu Ping said coldly, I am afraid that Senior Lin has already guessed it, but he still has a trace of hope in his heart. The middle-aged cultivator didn't say anything, but there was a flash of pain in his eyes, as if he had admitted what Lu Ping said. Lu Ping continued, It is not too difficult to treat Senior's injury. The difficulty lies in the fact that this kind of injury must be supplemented by the power of pills. It is extremely difficult for a cultivator to rely on their own cultivation to recover. I believe Senior Lin has experienced this deeply, right? The middle-aged cultivator heard the hidden meaning in Lu Ping's words. Obviously, he didn't refuse to treat him. He suddenly raised his head and said, That is exactly so. If fellow Taoists can help me, I will definitely repay you with a debt of gratitude. Lu Ping shook his head and smiled. Junior is not optimistic about Senior's repayment in the future. The middle-aged cultivator's expression changed and he said in a deep voice, What do you mean, fellow Taoist? Chapter 1081. Not good. Due to Chu Haiping's carelessness, he was suddenly ambushed by the blood demons. This caused the 5 of them to reveal a flaw in their defense. Several Mara did not fear death and rushed forward. Chu Hailing and Chu Haitian joined hands to help. Chu Haitian flew to Chu Haiping's side and tried to wake him up, but he was powerless. Seeing that Mara's army was about to cut off the connection between the 5 of them and the Laozu, Chu Haitian couldn't help but feel anxious. At this moment he heard Lu Ping shout, Let me. As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Ping appeared in front of Chu Haiping. He stretched out his finger and pointed at Chu Haiping's head while Chu Haitian cried out in alarm. Generally speaking, a confrontation of spiritual sense could only be resisted by the cultivator themselves. It was very difficult for others to get close. If they didn't handle it well, they would end up harming others. This was also the reason why Chu Haitian cried out in alarm when he saw Lu Ping pointing at Chu Haiping's head without thinking. An invisible flame invaded Chu Haiping's divine sense in an instant. A mass of divine sense that seemed to have been frozen tightly was gently burned by the flame. His entire divine sense seemed to have suddenly been stimulated. It suddenly melted and stretched out, but the invisible flame suddenly disappeared. Lu Ping immediately withdrew his finger. Chu Haiping howled miserably. His hair instantly stood on end. His forehead and back were instantly drenched in cold sweat. He stretched out his hand and was about to hit Lu Ping when he was stopped by Chu Haitian. He shouted, Brother Ping, wake up. Chu Haiping's dazed gaze finally recovered some spirit. Chu Haitian was overjoyed and said, Brother Ping, how are you? Chu Haiping looked to the front and saw Chu Hailing, Chu Haishao, and Lu Ping working together to block Mo Luo's pursuit. He hurriedly endured the searing pain in his head after being burned by the jade phosphorus soul fire, and said bitterly, I'm fine. After he finished speaking, he flicked his fingers repeatedly, and several sparkling and translucent silk threads shot out from his fingers, nailing a few Moros who had charged through the blockade of the 3 of them. He shouted, Retreat! Don't let the Moros cut off our connection with 6th grandfather and the others. Lu Ping and the others saw that Chu Haiping's face was pale, but his strength hadn't been affected much. They immediately began to slowly retreat. The 5 of them maintained their formation and caught up with Chu Fuyu and the others, who were more than 300 meters away. At this moment, the the blood demon hiding among Mara's group appeared again, and the chime sounded in his hand. But this time, Chu Haiping was already prepared. The silk threads rolled back and wrapped around him, blocking the blood demon's soul-devouring magic power. Seeing this, the blood demon pointed the jade-like companion spiritual treasure in his hand at Chu Haiping, as if he was going to use some more powerful magic power. Chu Haiping was on guard, but he suddenly saw that the blood demon's companion spiritual treasure had just stretched out, but its head suddenly separated from its neck and flew into the sky. Chu Haiping was taken aback. He looked at the back of the group of devil luos, but no reinforcements had arrived. He looked to his left and right, and saw that the other four were doing their best to block the pursuing devil luo. Behind him, old ancestor Chu Fuyu and the other four were still doing their best to advance. Who was it that attacked just now? How could it be so strange that it could reap the life of a blood devil? Chu Haiping saw that Chu Haiping was distracted again at the critical moment of the battle. He couldn't help but say, "Brother Ping, don't look. That's Brother Lu's invisible sword." Chu Haiping's attacks intensified, and at the same time he said to Lu Ping, "Brother Lu, thank you very much." Lu Ping's dual flying swords were like a giant wave pushing the wave in front. The attack was like a tide, and there was no sign of stopping. The Mara's army was blocked dozens of feet away, unable to advance. Hearing Chu Haiping's thanks, Lu Ping just smiled and said, "It's what I should do." The five of them fought and retreated. During this time, there were several blood Mara's sneak attacks, but they were all repelled by the five of them. Dozens of feet away, Chu Fuyu, Laozu, and the others were still advancing, but their speed was much slower. In front of the five of them, there were more than 10 blood Mara, and a few jade shuras. 3 jade shuras had to work together to stop them. In the end, Chu Fuyu, Laozu, and the others had to work together to break through. If they hadn't, the 10 of them would have been completely surrounded. Because Chu Fuyu, Laozu, and the others were fighting hard at the front, Lu Ping, and the others were not facing too many attacks from the blood Mara. As the group was steadily advancing, a sharp whistling sound came from afar. But before the whistling sound could be heard, a long knife that looked like a sickle was already coming for Chu Fuyu, Laozu, and the others. "Azura!" Patriarch Chu Fuyu bellowed, and a blue watery cloud rose up behind him. A one-horned eagle-clawed flood dragon emerged from the cloud, and a 5-feet-long saber fused with the horn of the Dharma idol. The Dharma idol let out a long roar, rushed out of the blue cloud, and collided with the scythe's spirit treasure. The entire sky within a radius of several thousand zhang fell silent, and only the loud bangs of the 2 spirit treasures could be heard in the world. Chu Haiping's divine will had just been damaged, and this loud noise shook his divine will even more. He could not help but cry out in pain, but there was no sound at all. Chu Fuyu's Dharma power flew backward, and his body was thrown backward. The 4 mid-Dharma adepts on both sides wanted to go forward to help, but a jade shura jumped out from each side and attacked them. At this time, Lu Ping and Chu Haitian suddenly attacked from the back of the 5 people. Chu Haiping and the others were still a little confused when they saw a jade shura and 2 blood shuras suddenly attack Mara's army. But they suddenly encountered Chu Haitian and Lu Ping in midair, and the 2 sides were engaged in another chaotic battle. Chu Haitian shouted and said, "Leave the jade shura to me. Finish off the other 2 quickly." The green cloud sword in his hand turned into a light snake that filled the sky, and then formed a huge moon in front of him. It was the bright moon over the sea, supreme swordsmanship magic passed down from the green sea snakes. Lu Ping's expression was serious. The 2 flying swords in his hands combined, and with one strike, he sent one of the blood shura flying. Just as Lu Ping was about to use all his strength to finish off the remaining blood shura, Lu Ping's expression changed slightly, and he suddenly took a step back. At the same time, an auspicious cloud rose from where he had been standing, and then suddenly collapsed. In the midst of Mara's army, the figures of 2 demonic shuras flashed by. Lu Ping was shocked. 2 blood shuras. At this moment, the blood shura that had been sent flying by Lu Ping had once again stood side by side with another blood shura. At the same time, 2 more blood shuras came out of the Mara's army and fought with Chu Haiping, and Chu Hailang. Lu Ping's heart was filled with ruthlessness. A 3-foot bell rose above his head, and Lu Xiaohai jumped out from the void beside him. He used all his strength to hit the bell with the copper hammer in his hand. Clang! The surface of the 3-foot bell was instantly filled with dense cracks, and invisible sound waves spread in all directions. Among the Mara's army, the big and small Mara's bodies were all stunned, and some of the weaker ones fainted on the spot and fell to the sea. Lu Ping jumped up, stepping on the golden auspicious cloud. The 2 flying swords in his hands hovered in mid-air, and rays of sword light separated from the swords. 2 became 4, 4 became 8, and then turned into 129,600 rays of sword light. They rotated in mid-air, forming a huge whirlpool of swordsmanship. Taking advantage of the moment when the imitation of the vast sea bell was shocked, it crashed into the Mara's army in one fell swoop. The 2 blood demons hidden among the Mara's army tried to dispel the shock of the small sea bell. Unexpectedly, the whirlpool of sword light took the opportunity to suck one of the blood demons into it. Before it could resist, the whirlpool of sword light had crushed it along with its accompanying spiritual treasure. The other blood demon dodged the strangulation of the Sea of 100 Rivers. The accompanying spiritual treasure in its hand lit up with a spiritual light, and the surrounding Mara, who had not been sucked into the whirlpool of sword light, immediately woke up and dodged. Seeing this, the 2 blood demons hurried to attack Lu Ping, trying to stop Lu Ping's terrible swordsmanship. But Lu Ping stretched out his hand and pushed at the 2 blood demons. Suddenly, columns of water rose from the sea hundreds of feet below, entangling the 2 blood demons. The 2 blood demons were not afraid, and each used their innate magical powers. Before the water columns could reach them, they turned into water blades and water snakes, counterattacking Lu Ping. Unexpectedly, at this moment, a little man, about a foot tall, suddenly broke through the water mist and appeared in front of one of the blood demons. A 5-inch wooden sword left its hand and stabbed at the throat of one of the blood demons. The blood demon dodged and waved the accompanying spiritual treasure in its hand. A white light burst out from Lu Xiaoping's chest. With a crack, an intact top-grade spirit stone suddenly shattered, forming a light shield of spirit qi in front of Lu Xiaoping, blocking the blood demon's hasty attack. But Lu Xiaoping was still sent flying. But this was enough. At the moment when Lu Xiaoping was killed, a hole suddenly appeared in the blood demon's chest. The blood demon looked down at the sudden wound on its chest and made a gurgling sound. Starting from the wound, its whole body was slowly melting. The other blood demon had long been frightened by Lu Ping's mysterious methods. After breaking through the interference of Lu Ping's water-controlling magic, it ran back without looking back. Lu Ping's methods not only scared off Mara, who was chasing after him, but also shocked Chu Haiming and the others. If it were not for the fact that there was a great enemy fighting in front of them, they would have looked at Lu Ping as if he was a monster. The 2 flying swords didn't wait for the swords to be pulled back. The scattered sword airs formed 2 sword-light dragons with the 2 swords as the center. They went for the Jade Shura, who was fighting Chu Haitian. Although the Jade Shura was fighting Chu Haitian, she could see everything around her. Seeing that the human was about to attack Chu Haitian from the front and back, she used her spirit treasure to attack Chu Haitian. It forced Chu Haitian to be on the defensive, and the Jade Shura took the chance to escape from Chu Haitian. She cast a space god power, and when she reappeared, she was hundreds of meters away. But when the Jade Shura was about to cast a space god power again, she suddenly made a strange noise. She ignored the hole in her thigh and went into the space door, disappearing from everyone's mind. This time, Chu Haiping and the others saw clearly that a blue flying sword appeared where the Jade Shura had been wounded. It flashed, and Lu Ping reached out his hand to take it. Numerous blood Mara were summoned by the Azuras to join the battle, and the pressure on Lu Ping and the rest increased. At this moment, there was a cry of alarm from the Mara tribe in front of them, as if some great danger had occurred. The Mara tribe quickly dodged and opened up a path, but then they saw an Azuras rushing over. This time, Lu Ping and the rest were all shocked. Chu Fuyu and Laozu hurriedly called for the rest to shrink their formation and prepare to retreat. But then they saw 2 beams of flowing light, one strong and one weak, following closely behind the Azuras, taking advantage of the path that Mara had avoided to fly over. Sixth brother, save me. One of the two flowing lights was in front, and the other was behind. The cultivator at the back was obviously not in a good state. He was overjoyed to see Chu Fuyu and the rest and shouted loudly. Seeing this, Chu Fuyu and Laozu were also overjoyed and said, "Shrink, get ready to retreat." After saying this, Chu Fuyu and the flowing light in front of him attacked almost at the same time. The two of them worked together to temporarily repel the Azuras that were trying to cut off the connection between them. The two flowing lights landed in the crowd and met up with Chu Fuyu and the rest. "Eighth brother, how are you?" Chu Fuyu turned around and asked one of the obviously injured people. This person was obviously from the green sea snakes, and he was also a late Dharma adept. However, at this moment his breathing was unstable, and it was obvious that his injuries were very serious. The adept, who was called Eighth Brother, panted and said, "It's not life-threatening, but it's good enough to barely have 30% of my strength. If it weren't for Brother Yuan Yu's help, I would have most likely died in there." Chu Fuyu and Laozu thanked the Crystal Palace adept, Yuan Yu and Laozu, who were fighting side by side with him, and said, "Thank you, my friend, for saving my brother." Yuan Yu and Laozu had worked together to block the attack of an Azura. Their faces were somewhat solemn, and it was obvious that this attack had consumed a lot of their strength. Yuan Yu said, "I don't deserve it. This time, I was only working together with Brother Tianya to attack the formation." After saying this, Yuan Yu and Laozu glanced at the only human adept among Chu Fuyu and Laozu. Seeing this, Chu Fuyu and Laozu nodded slightly and said, "No matter what, I still have to thank you, my friend. Let's get through this first." As the two of them spoke, they had already started to retreat with Lu Ping and the others. However, behind them, two more Azuras were chasing in the direction that Yuan Yu, Laozu, and Tianya Laozu had come from. This made the number of Azuras increase to 4. Originally, the two Azuras were just harassing them, but with the help of the other two Azuras, they immediately joined forces to attack the group. Chu Fuyu and Yuan Yu and Laozu did their best to resist, and the 4 mid-Dharma adepts also did their best to help, but the situation was getting worse. Chu Tianya and Laozu, who were at the side, saw that the situation was not good and wanted to intervene. However, he saw the human early Dharma adept, Minor Repairs, who was not weak and was almost on par with their tribe's most outstanding third-generation adept, Chu Haitian, suddenly throw a jade bottle towards him. "Senior, the elixir inside may be of some use to you." Chu Tianya Laozu could not help but laugh. No one knew better than him what kind of injury he had. However, this human Minor Repairs was able to mix around with their tribe's practitioners, so he obviously had a deep relationship with them. Chu Tianya did not want to reject his good intentions, but he did not take the jade bottle too seriously. Eighth grandfather. Brother Lu is now the most famous alchemy grandmaster on the 5 islands of phantom spirits. He was the one who cured father's injury. 13th uncle said that Brother Lu's alchemy skills are probably close to Grandmaster Yin Wujio's. Chu Haitian saw that Chu Tianya Laozu had put away the jade bottle. It was obvious that he did not take the elixir Lu Ping had given him seriously, so he quickly spoke up. "Alchemy Grandmaster?" Chu Tianya Laozu was taken aback. In his opinion, people like Lu Ping's improvement in cultivation had already exhausted their energy on other things. He did not expect that this Minor Repairs in front of him had a good cultivation and was actually an alchemy grandmaster. This was quite amazing. However, Chu Tianya Laozu reacted immediately. Only then did he realize that Chu Tianyu, a late-stage great practitioner, was not in the rescue team this time. He casually swallowed an elixir in the jade bottle and asked anxiously, "Your father is injured? How is his injury?" Chu Tianyu was one of the strongest second-generation practitioners of the green sea snakes. It was not impossible for him to achieve the pure young Dharma idol in the future. If it were not for his serious injury, Chu Tianyu would never let Chu Fuyu Laozu go out alone to rescue everyone. Without waiting for Chu Haitian to answer, Chu Fuyu shouted loudly, "Eighth brother, are you okay? Can you come up and help?" Chu Tianya did not dare to be negligent. He rushed towards Chu Fuyu and Yuan Yu Laozu, who were in the lead. However, before Chu Tianya could reach the two of them, his body suddenly shook and he said, "Good boy, this elixir is indeed useful. There is actually the smell of the spirit demon fruit in it. Do you have more? Give me another one." Lu Ping knew that this was a moment of life and death. He did not dare to be negligent. He threw another jade bottle over and said, "Senior, please use it sparingly. If this elixir is used repeatedly in a short period of time, the effect will be reduced." I know. Chapter 1083. Without waiting for Chu Tianya Laozu to finish speaking, Mara, who was hundreds of feet away, had already dodged again. Two Asuras roared and charged towards the group. Patriarch Yuanyu bellowed, and a huge tiger Dharma idol rose above his head. The Dharma idol let out a loud roar, and the tiger's tail behind it transformed into a huge crystal whip, which lashed out at an Asura in front of it. Shockingly, it was another One Tribulation spirit treasure. Chu Tianya Laozu also summoned his own Dharma power. It was also a single-horned dragon, but this one had crocodile legs and prawn whiskers. It was different from Chu Fuyu Laozu's Dharma power. The three Laozu exerted their strength together and forced the few Asuras in front of them to retreat. Then they shouted, "Retreat, retreat quickly." However, at this moment, the Jade Demon, who had been hiding in the surroundings and taking the opportunity to sneak up on them, suddenly attacked. Despite being injured by Lu Ping's Jade Phosphorus Soulfire, a black soul fog broke through the cloud sails obstruction. Lu Ping secretly thought, "Oh no," and shouted, "Be careful." Although the black fog had broken through the magic clouds, it was still weakened by the Jade Phosphorus Soulfire and the cloud sails. 3 of the 4 mid-Dharma adepts managed to avoid the attack in time. Only one of them, who had been injured in the battle earlier, was unable to avoid the fog in time and was enveloped by the fog. The Asura, who was being held back by the 4 of them, took the opportunity to break through. With one palm, he smashed the head of the adept who had been pinned by the Jade Demon. This was the first person to die after breaking through Mara's encirclement. "Uncle 16. Chu Haitian shouted and leaped up. A giant dragon circled above his head. Together with the other 3 mid-Dharma adepts, they blocked the gap that had been exposed. At the same time, he turned around and said, "Brother Lu." Lu Ping's expression was solemn as he nodded slightly. With a flick of his left hand, another flying sword shot out. It was surrounded by blue lightning, and the true appearance of the sword could not be seen, but it was undoubtedly a spirit treasure. The Water Spirit Sword Shapeless Sword, the Thin Water Flowing Sword 6 Major Sword Techniques, and the Een Water Divine Thunder attached to the Blood Orange Sword. 4 flying swords flew out at once, completely covering the gap left by Lu Ping and Chu Haitian. At the same time, Lu Ping waved his hand, and a small banner flew into his hand. He waved the banner in the direction of the Jade Demon, and his divine sense was blown by a gentle breeze. Suddenly, his divine sense appeared beside the Jade Demon. The Jade Demon could feel that Lu Ping's divine will was like a giant hammer that had been thrown by a huge force. It was even burning with flames that made the Jade Demon's heart palpitate. However, this little bit of time was enough for Chu Hailang and Chu Haijin to realize the danger behind them. But at this time, Lu Ping himself was in great danger. He was being targeted by an Asura. Lu Ping quickly retreated, but the Asura was getting closer and closer to him. Suddenly, the Asura's body stopped, and the companion's spiritual treasure in its hand casually flicked, and the Water Spirit Sword was knocked out of its original shape, and it was thrown far away. The Seeping Sword Skill's light screen, which was covered by the Een Water God Thunder, was easily broken. The Blood Orange Sword screamed. Even the Sea of 100 Rivers only slowed the Asura down a little before it was broken. Lu Ping covered himself with his sleeves and swung the scissors in his left hand. This time, the Asura finally stopped moving. Then, the Asura's hands pushed outwards, and the 2 invisible rays of light couldn't cross each other at all. In his sleeves, the mantis kept shouting, I'll cut, why can't I cut it?" Lu Ping took the opportunity to pull away from the Asura again. He waved his hand, and the 4 flying swords protected his body again. The avatar hiding behind Lu Ping pulled his ear and looked at the Asura in the distance. The Asura's body shook, and the two lights that had broken the spirit treasure in half broke. It opened its mouth, and an icicle shot out. It sucked up the water vapor in the air, and the icicle grew larger and larger. The temperature around it kept dropping, and it almost froze the space around it. The dragon Dharma form was like an ant on a hot pan in Lu Ping's core space. The 12 gentian pearls surrounded the Dharma form and flickered. At the same time, the white jade lotus under Lu Ping's feet was peeled off layer by layer. Each layer that bloomed was attached with a layer of protective qi. When the white jade lotus had bloomed completely, Lu Ping was already protected by the protective heavenly water curtain. The purple-gold Dharma form auspicious cloud began to rise behind Lu Ping. The icicle broke through the layers of defense set by the 4 flying swords, and pierced through the white jade lotus's blooming water curtain. In the end, it broke through the Dharma form auspicious cloud's giant claw, and pressed down on Lu Ping's chest. 12 5-colored rays of light were faintly discernible in the Dharma form auspicious cloud behind Lu Ping. The icicle that was pressed down by the giant claw suddenly exploded. A flush flashed across Lu Ping's face. In the end, he couldn't hold back, and spat out a mouthful of blood on the white jade lotus in front of him. Countless formation patterns and runes flickered on the lotus petals, imprinting a layer of dense pink, which was obviously more enchanting. The Azura obviously didn't expect Lu Ping to be able to persist in front of it for so long. With a strange roar, it was about to pounce on him again. At this time, Lu Ping couldn't care about his Dharma form anymore. In the auspicious cloud behind him, the 12 5-colored rays of light echoed with the lotus formation pattern under his feet, and it was about to burst out. Right at this time, 2 long howls were heard, and 2 ferocious auras descended, immediately attracting the Azura's attention. A fiery red ray of light crashed in, and in the blink of an eye, the Azura that was chasing Lu Ping was engaged in a battle with the Azura. Among the earth-shaking roars, the surrounding void suddenly turned into a world of ice and fire. Lu Ping let out a long sigh of relief, and he felt as if he had just escaped from death. When he looked over, it turned out that 2 great practitioners had rushed over after seeing Chu Fuyu Laozu's distress signal. One of them was the Fire Phoenix race's great practitioner, Yin Chongtian, who was battling the Azura that was chasing Lu Ping. The other human practitioner held a sharp sword in his hand, and every slash of his sword had the power to tear through the void. It was the great practitioner of Skyrend. Following closely behind these 2 great practitioners, another 7 or 8 Dharma adepts charged in, immediately alleviating the danger that Lu Ping and the others were in. However, without waiting for Lu Ping to catch his breath, a soul-piercing roar once again silenced the entire battlefield. Many Mara dodged, and the sky was filled with black clouds, covering half the sky in the blink of an eye. Lu Ping pulled the cloud sail behind him, and his whole body was wrapped tightly in the auspicious clouds. At this time, the entire battlefield finally recovered from the roar, and Chu Tianya could be heard shouting at the top of his lungs, "Heavenly demon! The heavenly demon is here, retreat!" The black fog rolled, and in an instant, a huge finger condensed in the middle of it, pointing towards the battlefield. Yuanyu Laozu shouted, and a white jade pagoda rose above his head, wanting to block it, but immediately after, there was a scream, and the white jade pagoda fell from his head. Yuanyu Laozu, a great late Dharma adept, held his head and rolled down from midair, taking a blow from the Azura that had caught up to him. He had lost half his life. "Scoundrel, how dare you!" A loud roar sounded like thunder, and boundless pure yang qi rolled over. The soul-devouring black fog in the sky began to shrink like melting snow, and the entire sky suddenly cleared up. A practitioner who seemed to have gathered all the light in the world came from the horizon, and at this moment, it was as if he was the only person left in this world. Pure Yang Laozu. There was actually a Pure Yang Laozu hidden in Phantom City. Chapter 1084. There was actually a Pure Yang Laozu hidden in Phantom City. Lu Ping was secretly surprised. Previously, even when Chengling Island was on the verge of being destroyed, this Pure Yang adept had not appeared at all. Now, the few great cultivators who had broken into Phantom City to deliver the news had suddenly appeared. Could it be that these people had some other secret with them other than setting a date for the counterattack with the Phantom City cultivators? Lu Ping looked around him. At this time, Chu Haiying, Chu Haiping, and the others were still fighting with Mara. However, from their faces, one could not see the surprise that the pure Yang adept had appeared. Clearly, the existence of this pure Yang Laozu was kept a secret from the other small and medium-sized forces. The appearance of the pure Yang adept had completely suppressed the heavenly demons, and the two Asuras had broken away from their respective opponents to help the heavenly demons. The pressure on Lu Ping and the others was greatly reduced, but they were still not out of danger. This was especially so for Yuan Yu Laozu, who had been ambushed by the heavenly demons and then taken a blow from the Asuras. He had almost completely lost his ability to fight. Everyone hurriedly retreated and met up with two groups of cultivators who had been fighting on the periphery of Mara's army. Although there were no great cultivators joining in, the number of mid-Dharma adepts had increased by 5 or 6. The number of Mara's army that was chasing after them was also increasing. There was a constant stream of people with battle powers above Mara's level joining in. Fortunately, at this time, everyone had gradually broken away from the encirclement of Mara's army. From being surrounded, they were now being chased. At least, they were no longer in a situation where they were surrounded by enemies. Chu Haiying and Chu Haiping were already seriously injured and were barely holding on. Chu Haitian was not much better off. Out of the 3 mid-Dharma adepts who had joined forces with him to fight against the Asuras, one had fallen. The remaining 2 were also pale as paper, both signs of internal injuries. Of the more than 10 Dharma adepts who had rushed to help, 3 had fallen as well. They had all been suddenly surrounded and killed in the midst of the chaotic battle. After the pure Yang Laozu appeared, he disappeared with the heavenly demons and the 2 Asuras who had left the battle. However, very quickly, 2 more Asuras appeared. At this time, even Chu Fuyu Laozu was exhausted after fighting so many battles. To deal with 2 more Asuras, the great cultivators were unable to do so. They could only rely on the mid-Dharma adepts who had joined forces to fight. Fortunately, the battle that Lu Ping and the others were in had already attracted the attention of many people. In the distant sky, flashes of light kept flashing over, joining the battle with Mo Luo. The scale of the battle was getting larger and larger. It was no longer a battle that revolved around Lu Ping's group. Instead, it had become a huge chaotic battle. However, the strength of the human and demon clans was, after all, weak compared to the demonic Luo army. At this time, they were outside the Phantom City, and the demonic Luo army was constantly rushing over. The human and demon clans would soon fall into a predicament. Therefore, after rescuing a few great cultivators who had broken through the encirclement, the Phantom City cultivators began to slowly retreat towards the Phantom City. Lu Ping apologized to Chu Fuyu Laozu after the outcome of the battle had been decided. Then he wanted to find Tiankong Laozu. For this rescue battle, it could be said that Phantom City had turned out in full force. Almost all the Dharma adepts had participated in the battle. Tiankong Laozu must have also participated. However, until now Lu Ping had not seen Tiankong Laozu. Unexpectedly, without waiting for Chu Fuyu Laozu to agree, Chu Tianyao Laozu, who was at the side, had already said, "Kid, let me give you a small gift. Consider it as compensation for eating your elixir just now." Without waiting for Lu Ping to refuse, Tianyao Laozu had already thrown a jade scroll over. Lu Ping had no choice but to catch it. After scanning it with his divine will, he saw 4 big words on the jade scroll. Thunderclap Sword Technique. It was a set of sword techniques that combined thunder techniques and swordsmanship. "Kid, I see that your swordsmanship is superb, and you also know how to use the water thunder technique. However, you are still far from being able to combine these 2 remarkable techniques. It is obvious that you are just trying to figure it out yourself. This set of sword techniques is a legacy that specifically combines 2 remarkable techniques. It is a pity that the old man did not manage to achieve a natural thunder attribute remarkable technique back then. This legacy is good for you." Lu Ping had originally wanted to refuse, but when he saw this set of legacy, he hesitated. Just as Tianyao Laozu had said, Lu Ping's exploration of the combination of the two was still far from perfect. With this set of remarkable techniques as a reference, at least Lu Ping would be able to face Mara's army with more ease. After thanking Chu Tianya, Chu Fuyu Laozu ordered Chu Haitian and Lu Ping to look for Tiankong Laozu together. Lu Ping's heart moved. After thanking Chu Fuyu Laozu, he was about to leave with Chu Haitian when a sound transmission sword suddenly arrived. Lu Ping stretched out his hand to take a look and immediately frowned. Seeing this, Chu Haitian asked, "Brother Lu, is there news about Senior Tiankong of your sect?" A murderous look flashed between Lu Ping's eyebrows, and he said, "Yes, Martial Uncle has returned to Phantom City, but he is seriously injured now. I have to rush back to Spirit Gathering Island as soon as possible." Chu Haitian said, "There is no time to lose, I will accompany you." No one knew what Lu Ping was thinking, but in the end, he did not reject Chu Haitian's good intentions. The two of them rode on the conveyance light to Spirit Gathering Island. When Lu Ping saw Tiankong Laozu again, his heart sank. His originally gray hair was now completely white, and the wrinkles on his eyebrows were like old tree bark. His whole person looked old and sick. Obviously, the injury this time had greatly damaged Tiankong Laozu's vitality, and he probably did not have much lifespan left. "Martial Uncle, you." Old Ancestor Heavenly Peace smiled faintly and said, "This time, I fell into someone's trap and was chased by two Jade Azuras. I almost lost my life." "Who was it?" Lu Ping asked coldly. Old Ancestor Tiankong shook his head and didn't answer Lu Ping's question. Instead, he said rather proudly, "Even though the few of them had the intention to lure two Jade Shura over, their methods were still too immature. Furthermore, Old Ancestor wasn't someone who was easy to deal with. Instead, he lured a few Blood Demon Shura over, and everyone fell into a heavy encirclement, so we just had to perish together." Those few small cultivators were instantly dumbfounded. In the end, two of them died while I relied on the mountain splitting axe to kill my way out. Haha. Tiankong Laozu laughed, but suddenly his face changed. His laughter suddenly turned into a violent cough, and then he coughed up blood. Lu Ping did not say anything, and he put a healing pill into his mouth, but Tiankong Laozu stopped him and said, "Don't waste it. I know it was not easy to make this pill, and it is not even as good as Brother Tianlu's Bell Cauldron pill. But this is an old sore relapse, and it is something that can kill me. It is not something that can be cured by a healing pill." Lu Ping took out a purple gold longevity pill and said, "Martial Uncle, if that is the case, then this longevity pill can be used." Tiankong Laozu still shook his head, and he said, "I have already told you, any longevity pill used on the old man is a waste. The old man is very clear about his own injuries. The old man should have died more than 100 years ago, but he has been holding on for more than 100 years. He can die with no regrets." Lu Ping knew that Tiankong Laozu wanted to die a long time ago, but because of the sect's friendship, he was able to hold on until now. Previously, Zhongling had plotted several times, and Tiankong Laozu always played the role of a pawn, always charging at the front. There were several battles in the Phantom City, and he was willing to be injured to protect Lu Ping. When Lu Ping and Chu Haitian came out of Tiankong Laozu's secret room, Chu Haitian asked in a low voice, "Brother Lu, what do you think about the cultivator who attacked Senior Tiankong?" Lu Ping's expression was cold, and he said in a cold voice, "Our sect's foundation is not deep, so it is most likely because of jealousy. Moreover, I am afraid that this matter will fall on me. I am afraid that I have been in the limelight for too long, and I am afraid that I am an eyesore. Of course, it is also possible that our sect has unintentionally offended someone." Chu Haishao pondered deeply for a moment, and seemed to be considering something, and then he tactfully said, "Senior Tiankong has always kept his mouth shut about the cultivator that assaulted and killed him. I think Senior has surely noticed something, but the power behind the assailant is too great, so you can only swallow your anger and humiliation." Lu Ping nodded, but he did not say anything. How could he not have thought of this? Seeing this, Chu Haitian said again, "Brother Lu, if your sect has any difficulties, don't forget about us, the Green Sea Snakes. Not to mention the fact that the Heavenly Feather Tribe's uncle's cultivation would have been destroyed if Brother Lu had not intervened. Even with our current relationship, there is no reason for us to stand by and do nothing. In the battle to receive the cultivators outside the city, there were 5 great adepts who charged in from outside the city. Among them, there were 2 from the Crystal Palace, and 1 each from the Green Sea Snakes, Kuan Fish, and Fire Phoenix tribes. In the end, all 4 great adepts were seriously injured. Chu Tianya's injuries were considered light, and as for Yan Zhuyang Laozu from the Fire Phoenix tribe, he had completely disappeared. There was an 80% chance that he had died without even a trace. However, in order to receive the 5 of them, almost all the Dharma adepts in Phantom City had come out. After a huge battle, another 20 to 30 Dharma adepts had completely fallen. According to what Lu Ping knew, Shirling Island was guarded by one of the top 10 medium-sized sections. Originally, there were more than 20 Dharma adepts, but now there were only 12 or 13 left. The 5 islands of Phantom City had been surrounded for almost a year, and almost half of them had fallen. Yuanling Island was not much better, especially when the heavenly demons had led Mara's army to attack Yuanling Island. 15 years ago, there were close to 30 Dharma adepts. Now the number of Dharma adepts left was about the same as that of Shirling Island. On average, each sect did not even have enough Dharma adepts. If Shirling Island and Yuanling Island were like this, then Jade Spirit Island, which was guarded by the 12 foreign demon tribes, was not much better. Phantom Island and Chungling Island were originally the strongest. Although Phantom Island was guarded by several great adepts from the 9 main sects, Phantom City was also the main direction of attack for Mara's army. Chapter 1085. Is it big? Lu Ping raised an eyebrow and glanced at Lin Jingtang from the corner of his eyes. I have never forced you to do anything. If you think it's inappropriate, you can always look for other alchemists. Lin Jingtang pointed at Lu Ping. His anger had just risen, but he had to extinguish it. He said coldly, "You are making things difficult for me. In 4 days, the overseas cultivators' reinforcements will arrive. Where do you expect me to find alchemists now? Besides, if I could find other alchemists, I wouldn't have spent so much time looking for Lu Daoyu." Lu Ping smiled faintly and said, "Rather than being held hostage by others and having all your possessions become spoils of war for your enemies, why don't you let me take advantage of you now? That way, those people who want to make things difficult for you will be happy for nothing. Don't you agree, Senior?" Lin Jingtang sneered. "You sure have your wishful thinking. How can you be so sure that I won't be able to escape? After I give them to you, if I manage to escape, wouldn't this little bit of wealth go to you for nothing? Oh, since you are so confident, Senior, then there is no need for me to refine this pill. Senior, do as you please." Lin Jingtang was exasperated. Lu Ping said seriously, "What do you think are the chances of you escaping? Even if you manage to escape, what are the chances of the Northern Alliance surviving this disaster?" Lin Jingtang was silent. Half an hour later, Lin Jingtang left the tea house as if nothing had happened. In the VIP room, a storage bag was placed on the tea table in front of Lu Ping. Lu Ping weighed the bag in his hand and said, 300 supreme spiritual stones is a little too little. Lin Jingtang must have hidden quite a lot. With the Northern Alliance's reputation, they should be in the top 5 of the 9 sections. They should have at least 1,000 spiritual stones. There was a knock on the door, and the tea house's manager walked in with a smile. "Junior brother Lu, you seem to have gained a lot." Lu Ping waved the storage bag in his hand and said, "Not bad, but it's less than I expected." The shopkeeper let out an "oh" and said, "Junior brother has been persuaded by that Lin Jingtang? Speaking of which, this is quite risky. If the 9 great sects who are plotting against the Northern Alliance find out about this, it will be very disadvantageous to our sect." Lu Ping said confidently, "He won't tell." Lu Ping stood up and walked out of the tea house. At the same time, he seemed to think of something and asked, "What's the background of the waiter in your shop?" The shopkeeper's expression tensed up as he said, "He's a servant I adopted in the Phantom City. Since he's quite intelligent, I taught him the cultivation method. Now he's already at the late blood refining realm. Initially, I planned to take him in as my disciple, if I could make some progress in the future. This child originally has the pure blood of the demon race's Wood Phoenix bloodline. When he enters the blood condensation realm, among the 7 human bloodlines in his body, whether or not he has the Wood attribute Wood Phoenix bloodline, his bloodline will undoubtedly be the Wood Phoenix bloodline. If he has both, then his talent will be extraordinary. In the future, if he is properly nurtured, not only will his cultivation of Wood attribute spells be twice the result with half the effort, he will even have the ambition to become an alchemist. Shopkeeper Zhou was shocked by Lu Ping's words. He didn't hear the rest of what Lu Ping said. But one thing he understood was that he had picked up a treasure when he took in this servant out of kindness. In the future, if he took this servant in and nurtured him well, he might even have to rely on his students' achievements as a teacher. Although Shopkeeper Zhou was a 3rd-generation disciple of the Jinling clan like Lu Ping, and was also Lu Ping's senior brother, the difference in status between them was like heaven and earth. Shopkeeper Zhou didn't have the slightest disgust towards Lu Ping's orders. Instead, he repeatedly nodded in agreement. In the end, he stared blankly at the 2 storage pouches in his hands, but Lu Ping had already disappeared without a trace. Suddenly, Shopkeeper Zhou came to a realization. Of the 2 storage pouches Lu Ping left behind, one was for him, and the other was for the waiter. However, it was stated that the waiter could only be given to him after he advanced into the blood condensation realm. Shopkeeper Zhou didn't dare to open the storage pouch that Lu Ping left for the waiter, so he only opened the one that was left for him. Inside, there were neatly stacked high-grade spirit stones, more than 10 bottles of various kinds of spiritual pills, and 2 spirit-connected artifacts, one for offense and one for defense. Shopkeeper Zhou's hands trembled. A mid-stage core forging realm cultivator almost lost his grip on the storage pouch. After calming himself down, Shopkeeper Zhou finally recovered. He put away the 2 storage pouches and looked around. Suddenly, he was furious and shouted, Luan Xiaobei, where the hell have you been? You only know how to be absent-minded every day. Have you finished your homework for today? What? Do it again tonight? Go back to the backyard right now. If you don't finish your homework today, don't even think about eating the leftovers of my 5-grain nourishing soup today. The waiter, Zhou Xiaobei, didn't know what was wrong with the shopkeeper today. He was more than happy to be able to focus on his cultivation without having to run around. Why did the shopkeeper have to make such a scene? Zhou Xiaobei carefully held a small cup of unbrewed scented tea left behind by the senior in the VIP room. Then he ran to the backyard happily. From the books in the shopkeeper's collection, Zhou Xiaobei found out that this tea was most likely a top-grade spiritual tea. Just from the fact that the arcane energy in his body could circulate faster after he took a few sniffs of it, this bit of spiritual tea might be enough to help him break through to the 9th layer of the blood condensation realm. However, the spiritual spring water was still a problem. It would be a great waste if he didn't soak such a good spiritual tea in the spring water. It seemed like he still had to get some ideas from the shopkeeper. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. Most of the cultivators of the human and demon races gathered in Phantom City, ready to join forces with the cultivators from the various overseas sects in this final battle. Under Lu Ping's repeated persuasion, Tiankong Laozu finally agreed not to participate in this battle, and Lu Ping also promised that he would join forces with the Green Sea Snakes this time, and not act alone. Although the Green Sea Snakes had lost 3 Dharma adepts in the battle, and the rest were injured, after 7 days of recuperation, those who were not seriously injured had recovered their combat power. This time, Chu Tianyu and Laozu would also participate in the battle, so the number of Grand Adepts in the Green Sea Snakes had reached 3. If Lu Ping moved together with them, he should be able to ensure his own safety. Above the Phantom City, hundreds of Dharma Adepts stood in the air above the city walls. Below them, there was a dense crowd of core forging adepts. In the middle of these hundreds of Dharma Adepts, there was an old man in his 60s who was surrounded by more than 10 Grand Adepts. Lu Ping recognized this man as the pure young Laozu, who had forced the heavenly demons to retreat at the critical moment. Chu Haitian had already introduced him to this pure young adept as the Crystal Palace's Yuan Yin Laozu. who had been guarding the Phantom Palace's protective matrix. Other than the humans' Crystal Palace, the 9 great sects, and the 3 major demon tribes, no other forces, big or small, knew of his existence. It was precisely because of this pure yang laozu that the protective matrix of the Phantom 5 Islands could remain unbroken under the bombardment of Mara's army. Even when there was a crisis on Chungling Island, he could single-handedly control the matrix to resist the corrosion of the entire poisonous Azura tribe on the island's protective matrix, preventing the gap from expanding. Lu Ping's eyes flashed with green light, and his vision broke through the light fog outside the city to look at the sea a few miles away. He asked Chu Haitian in a low voice, "Brother Chu, how do you think the overseas practitioners' reinforcements will attack Mara's army outside the island?" Chu Haitian laughed softly and said, "They will use the thing that your sect desires the most as a means of attack." Chapter 1086. Lu Ping was slightly taken aback. He seemed to have vaguely guessed what method Chu Haitian was talking about. The sun had just risen, and the warm light made the light fog on the surface of the sea look like a dream. However, before the crowd could immerse themselves in the wonder of the sunrise, the sudden sound of war drums broke the silence of the morning and seemed to have awakened the dreamy light fog. The mottled colors of the war drums became more and more distinct, and finally, when the light fog that filled the sky dissipated under the rising sun, all the cultivators who had rushed to the top of Fantasy Spirit City suddenly let out a shout that even drowned out the sound of the drums in the sky. 6 huge black shadows broke through the barrier where the water and the sky met. Amidst the dull but vigorous sound of the war drums, they gradually revealed their majesty in the eyes of the cultivators of Fantasy Spirit City. Treasured ships, they were treasured ships. 6 huge treasured ships, with Fantasy Spirit City as their target, formed a huge fan-shaped attack formation from 6 different directions, creating huge waves on the surface of the sea. They were like the 6 ribs of this huge fan, and with a momentum that could topple mountains and overturn seas, they crushed towards Mara's army a few miles away from Fantasy Spirit City. Thump thump thump, thump thump thump, thump thump thump. 3 consecutive sounds of drums could be heard, and the 6 treasured ships shone brightly. Lu Ping's 3 pure true eyes were activated to the extreme, and he could clearly see that the various colored runes on the bodies of the treasured ships were being activated. Various colored protective barriers rose along the bodies of the ships, protecting the 6 treasured ships under the protective barrier of the formation. Mara's army finally began to move. Like a huge octopus stretching out 6 thick tentacles in the sky, they wrapped around the 6 treasured ships. All the cultivators above Fantasy Spirit City looked at the old man, who stood at the highest point of the city with his hands clasped behind his back. He was the strongest pure yang cultivator on the 5 islands, Yuan Yin Laozu. Just waiting for his order, hundreds of Dharma adepts and nearly 1,000 core forging adepts would charge out of Fantasy Spirit City to join forces with the 6 treasured ships to attack Mara's army from the front and back. However, Yuan Yin Laozu remained quietly suspended in midair, his expression calm and silent. He quietly watched the battle that was about to erupt in the distance, as if he had decided to stand by and watch. Without Yuan Yin Laozu's order, no one dared to take a step out of Fantasy Spirit City. The commotion caused by the shocking appearance of the 6 treasured ships quickly calmed down. However, the more it was so, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. This must be the treasured ship of the Skysplitter Sword Sect, the Skysplitter. Wasn't that narrow yet extremely long treasured ship like a peerless longsword that could cut through all obstacles? As the Heaven Splitter took the lead to attack, the other 5 treasured ships also launched attacks one after another. The 6 tentacles that Mara's army stretched out to test the waters were all cut off. At the same time, Lu Ping and the others also recognized that the treasured ship furthest to the west was Purple Talisman Pavilion's Fury, and the treasure ship next to it was Wind Thunder Island's Thunderclap. The attack of the 6 Debao ships had almost completely annihilated the probing Mara's army. This immediately infuriated the entire Mara clan, and at the same time, they also learned the strength of the 6 huge ships in front of them. A loud roar sounded from the Mara clan, and the entire Mara's army was mobilized again. This time, the Mara's army didn't split up to attack the 6 treasured ships. Instead, they turned southeast and headed toward the Carefree Sect's treasured ship, which was the outermost and also the weakest. They actually had the idea of attacking them one by one. The movement of Mara's army naturally attracted the attention of the other 5 treasured ships. The Heaven Splitter, which was the closest to the Carefree Sect's treasured ship, was the first to approach it. The other 4 treasured ships drew huge arcs on the surface of the sea and began to outflank it. Although the treasured ships were moving quite quickly, they were still not as agile as Mara's army, other than the Heaven Splitter, which managed to reach the Carefree Sect's treasured ship in time. The other 4 Debao ships still needed some time to catch up. During this time, the Carefree Sect and the Heaven Splitter had no choice but to face the joint attack of Mara's army. This time, the Mara's army was clearly not in the same formation as before. The first group was led by 4 or 5 Azuras, and they were followed by several Jade Mara. Behind them, there was still a steady stream of Mara's army supporting them. Everyone in Phantom City once again looked at Yuan Yin Laozu, and this time, many Dharma adepts seemed to be asking why they weren't attacking at this time. Seeing that Mara's army was obviously going to attack them one by one, some of the black-bellied and anxious adepts were even secretly speculating about Yuan Yin Laozu's intentions. Just as the Carefree Sect was about to face the predicament of being besieged, dozens of streaks of light suddenly surged from the Carefree Sect. The 7 or 8 adepts in the lead were all great adepts of the late Dharma stage. The 2 sides collided in midair, and for a moment, the adepts on the Carefree Sect actually gained the upper hand, resisting the attack of Mara's army. Chapter 1087. Following Yuan Yin Laozu's command, the cultivators of the 5 islands surged out of the Phantom City like a flood, charging towards the back of Mara's army. Lu Ping, Chu Haitian, Chu Haiji, Chu Haiping, and the others followed behind the green sea snakes and the other great cultivators as they charged towards Mara's army. This time, however, was different. After the battle with Mara, the humans and demons no longer faced the danger of being surrounded by Mara's army. Instead, they advanced step by step. While restraining Mara's army from attacking the unfettered with all their might, they also tried their best to stay in line with the other ships that were surrounding them from the other 4 directions. While exerting the greatest pressure on Mara's army, they also forced Mara's army to slowly move towards the outskirts of the 5 islands of Phantom City. Although it was said that they were advancing step by step, in fact, the moment the battle began, the great cultivators had already charged towards the Azuras. The remaining mid and early stage cultivators tried their best to find the hidden Blood Mara and Jade Mara within Mara's army. At the same time, they also killed a large number of ordinary Mara, so as to reduce the pressure on the core forging adepts that came later. Behind the crowd, the core forging adepts behind the Dharma adepts finally charged over. At this time, after the Dharma adepts had selected, the danger within Mara's army had undoubtedly decreased significantly. In addition to the Phantom City cultivators launching a large-scale attack, the Dharma adepts on the other 4 ships also charged into the demonic Luo army to kill. This was especially so for the Dharma adepts on the Fu Rui and the Lei Jinghao. Although the Dharma adepts on the 2 ships had arrived the latest, they were the most powerful. With 10 great adepts leading the charge, the overall situation of the humans and demons took a turn for the better. Especially after the appearance of another Dharma form, Laozu, the situation became more and more favorable for the humans and demons. Mara's army seemed to have sensed something and began to slowly retreat towards the southeast. The appearance of the 3 pure young Laozu attracted the attention of 2 heavenly demons and 8 or 9 Azuras, which greatly restricted the high-end combat power of Mara's army. In the level of great cultivators, over 30 great cultivators of the human and demon races were outnumbered for a moment. Although it was not easy to achieve a result like killing an Azura in a short period of time, it was extremely easy to achieve a result when this favorable situation extended. Several Jade Mara were easily killed by the great cultivators who were free, and some of the mid-Dharma adepts also turned to deal with the Blood Mara, causing the entire situation to rapidly develop in the direction of the humans and demons. After the incident where Tiankong Laozu was plotted against, Lu Ping did not use his full strength this time. He only began to hunt the blood Mara on the periphery, and when he encountered the jade Mara, he turned and retreated. From the beginning to the end, he did not use his avatar, or the aqua sword. Even so, after the initial chaos of the battle, Lu Ping had killed a blood Azura and a blood demon. This time, Lu Ping was clearly lucky. When the blood demon died, its companion spiritual treasure did not explode along with it. However, at this moment, Lu Ping's divine will moved, and a black figure suddenly appeared near the fallen companion's spiritual treasure and reached out to grab it. However, the moment his hand grabbed the companion's spiritual treasure firmly, Lu Ping's cold snort suddenly exploded in his head. Buzz! The black figure's head felt like it was about to split open, and his whole body froze. It was at this moment that a gentle breeze swept past, and the black figure felt a chill on his arm. When he looked down, he saw that the companion's spiritual treasure was falling towards the sea, and on top of the treasure was a severed arm that was firmly grasped. Ah! The black figure let out a shrill cry. He had just escaped from Lu Ping's divine will attack, but the pain of his severed arm once again overwhelmed all his senses. A spatial crack appeared on the surface of the sea, and after the companion's spiritual treasure entered it, the spatial crack immediately disappeared. Lu Ping hovered in midair, facing the black figure whose arm he had cut off, and did not take any further action. The black figure was a person completely shrouded in black clothes. Even with Lu Ping's divine will, he could not completely penetrate the black clothes that the black figure was wearing. He could only faintly sense that the person's aura was extremely strange. Two black figures slowly appeared behind the black figure with the severed arm. The three of them and Lu Ping silently faced each other, and after a moment, the three of them suddenly flew backward and slowly disappeared into the void. Lu Ping turned slightly and said, "Brother Chu, thank you very much." Chu Haitian appeared behind him out of nowhere, and said, "Even if I did not appear, these three people would not be a match for Brother Lu." Lu Ping asked, "Brother Chu, do you know where these three people came from?" Chu Haitian's face was also full of doubt. He shook his head and said, "I don't know, I have never heard of these people. That black clothes seem extremely strange, and the aura around these three people is also very strange." Lu Ping nodded. Although his divine will was tyrannical, and he had discovered more places than Chu Haitian, he still could not figure it out. He said, "I think these people must be the people who tried to plot against Marshal Granduncle." In the 5 islands of Phantom, under the protection of the major sects and the 3 major tribes, there is actually such a hidden force that has not been discovered. I am afraid that the force behind these people is extremely powerful. Indeed, I will inform the elders of this matter. I think they will also be interested in this matter. The other 4 treasure ships had already completed the roundabout turn, completely separating Mara's army from the Phantom City behind them. The reason why treasure ships were the symbols of large sects was because they themselves were huge war fortresses, and they were even called the second foundation of the various sects floating on the sea. When each treasure ship crashed into Mara's army, the power that erupted in an instant with the formation runes around the treasure ship, as the foundation, was close to a supreme divine ability. Moreover, the scope of the power was far from what a single cultivator could compare with. The entire area within a radius of 3 kilometers was the treasure ship's attack range. Therefore, after the 6 huge treasure ships changed their formation, they still formed a formation with a distance of 6 kilometers between each treasure ship, and attacked Mara's army on the sea surface. Every time the treasure ship's divine ability exploded, the area that was 6 kilometers in front and 4 kilometers in the left and right was almost empty of Mara's army. Occasionally, there were Mara who were lucky enough to survive, but they were immediately wiped out by the cultivators that flew out from the treasure ships. The enormous power of the treasured ships, especially the power displayed after the formation of the 6 treasured ships, not only terrified the Devil Luo army, but also shocked the humans and demons into speechlessness by the scene in front of them. Lu Ping and Chu Haitian were working together to search for the Mara's army that had avoided the treasure ships. At this moment, a sound transmission magic sword that was specially used by Jinling suddenly found Lu Ping. Lu Ping was startled and hastily checked the content of the sword. It turned out to be a message from Taoist Master Xian Su. In this battle, Jinling had originally planned to deal with it passively. Although Lu Ping was nominally leading over 10 core forging cultivators to participate in the battle, Lu Ping had always been fighting together with Chu Haitian and the others. Under the leadership of Taoist Master Xian Su, the sect's core forging cultivators were only intercepting and killing the scattered Mara, not far away from Fantasy Spirit City. Once there was danger, they would retreat into Fantasy Spirit City. However, not everyone was willing to accept the arrangement made by Lu Ping and Tiankong Laozu to protect their own sect's cultivators. At this time, on the sea nearly 100 miles away from Fantasy Spirit City, Xian Yong, Xian Feng, Xian Ling, Xian Heng, and Xian Peng had joined forces to besiege a group of Mara, who had escaped from the treasure ship's killing array. The leader was a blood Azura, and there were only 7 or 8 Mara of different sizes. After escaping from the treasure ship's killing array, they were all badly injured and could no longer be considered a threat. Only this blood Azura was unharmed. What should we do? Should we kill them or not? If we don't kill them, we'll let them go. I think this blood Azura won't be stupid enough to entangle with us. Although Taoist Master Xian Peng only had one arm left, he had clearly recovered from the dispiritedness of losing his arm. At this time, he had successfully advanced to the 7th layer of the core forging realm. His understanding of array formations had also reached a new level. Over the past year, the cultivators who had survived the battle with Mara had all made rapid progress in their cultivation. After Xian Yong broke through to the 9th level of the core forging realm, Xian Feng followed closely behind and was now at the peak of the 8th level of the core forging realm. Xian Ling had also broken through to the 8th level of the core forging realm some time ago. Although Xian Heng's cultivation had not broken through, he was also at the peak of the 7th level of the core forging realm. The few of them had experience fighting against Blood Shura before, but that was only a tactic they used when they had no other choice. It was a strenuous fight, and the initiative was still in Blood Shura's hands. He could withdraw and retreat at any time. Now, the 5 of them obviously wanted to completely kill Blood Shura with their own strength. Xian Yong's cultivation had just broken through to the 9th level of the core forging realm, and he was full of confidence. He suddenly spat out a mouthful of smoke, almost igniting the surrounding air, and shouted, "Let's do it!" Xian Feng did not speak, but the spirit-raising flying sword in his hand began to buzz. Obviously, he was very excited about this battle. Xian Ling said helplessly, "Fight, fight. Anyway, you'll be reprimanded when we go back. I'll take care of grandfather." Taoist Xian Heng smiled bitterly. At this time, it was no longer important whether he objected or not. Even if he was not willing to take the risk, he would not leave his fellow disciples alone. That's good. Taoist Xian Peng's hand changed continuously, and the formation plate of the simple killing array he had hastily set up suddenly exploded. Taoist Xian Peng shouted, "Hurry up, this killing array has been overstimulated by me. Try to finish this before the power of the killing array dissipates." The flame spear in Xian Yong's hand was already attacking the blood Azura from the front. Chapter 1088. Under the siege of Xian Yong and the other 4, Blood Shura did not manage to escape in the end. However, after killing Blood Shura, the 5 of them were also exhausted. Xian Yong alone blocked most of Blood Shura's attack, but he suffered several wounds from Blood Shura, and his internal organs were also shaken. He was the most seriously injured among the 5, but after Blood Shura's death, he was the one who laughed the most heartily. Lu Ping and Chu Haitian did not appear in front of everyone from beginning to end. After seeing the 5 people turn back to Phantom City after ambushing Blood Shura, the 2 of them left quietly. The battle outside Phantom City lasted for 2 days and 2 nights. The human and demon clans, led by 6 treasure ships and 3 pure young cultivators, finally won. During this period, there seemed to be some unspoken rumors. It seemed that during the critical period of the battle with Mara, the two skyscraping demons actually began to lead Mara's army to escape, and the three pure young Laozu were said to be entangled by several Asuras. In the end, they could only watch as the two skyscraping demons led a part of the most elite Mara army to escape. There were also rumors that when the second pure young Laozu appeared, the two skyscraping demons had already begun to escape, and the remaining Mara army was just a pretense to delay the pursuit of the cultivators of the human and demon clans. There were even rumors that when Mara's army retreated, the great cultivators of the human and demon clans and the three pure young Laozu encountered an even more terrifying opponent. The great cultivators finally retreated, allowing Mara's army to retreat calmly. In any case, the siege of Mara outside Phantom City was finally lifted. Although Mara's army suffered heavy casualties, the two skyscraping demons led several Asuras to escape from the three pure young Laozus. There was no doubt about this. As for how to escape, although there were many different opinions, the third rumor was naturally the most unbelievable. What a joke! To be able to make three pure young Laozu retreat. Could it be that there was also a real spirit in Mara? 2 days later, Tiankong Laozu, Lu Ping, and Jiang Tianlin Laozu sat on the ground at Jinling's encampment. Jiang Tianlin Laozu was one of the cultivators Jinling had sent to participate in the battle of the illusionary spirit 5 islands. Before this, Jiang Tianlin Laozu had been on the Carefree faction's treasured ship and had been at the forefront of the battle against Mara's army. Lu Ping, on the other hand, had been wandering around the periphery and had never seen him. It wasn't until the demonic Luo army was defeated that Lu Ping met ancestor Jiang Tianlin outside the Xiao Yao sect's ship that the humans and monsters chased after the demonic Luo army. When Lu Ping saw Jiang Tianlin Laozu had a calamity spirit treasure wood floating above his head, and he was beating a jade shura. Old ancestor Jiang Tianlin was overjoyed to see Lu Ping. The spirit treasure above his head transformed into a small tree that had 108 tree leaves hanging from it, and the tree fluttered in the air, killing the jade Azura with a single strike. After that, the two of them fought together. Although Jiang Tianlin Laozu didn't have a powerful calamity spirit treasure like Tiankong Laozu's mountain splitting axe, Jiang Tianlin Laozu was much stronger than Tiankong Laozu. When the two of them worked together, they could even fight an Azura. However, compared to Lu Ping's calmness when he saw Jiang Tianlin Laozu's power, Jiang Tianlin Laozu was much more shocked when he saw Lu Ping's performance. Once upon a time, this minor repairs in Jinling, who was valued by others because of his appreciation, had now grown into a towering tree that was no less than his own. At this rate, it was only a matter of time before he surpassed him. As the two of them chased after Mara's army with the Carefree faction's treasured ship, they talked about the 5 islands of phantom spirits and the current situation in the North Sea. Only then did Lu Ping know that his teacher Lu Tianling had successfully passed the second Calamity Thunder more than half a year ago and reached the middle Dharma stage. When Jiang Tianlin learned of Zhang Xi's death, he couldn't help but sigh. When he learned that Tiankong Laozu and Lu Ping had been noticed by a secret force on Phantom Spirits Island, he was also very surprised. He didn't know who else would have the ability to manage such a powerful force in such a secretive manner, when the 5 islands of Phantom Spirits were under the control of the Crystal Palace, the 9 great sects, and the 3 great tribes. After the battle in Phantom Spirits City ended, the hundreds of Dharma adepts on the 6 treasured ships returned to Phantom Spirits Island to rest. Lu Ping and Jiang Tianlin Laozu returned to Spirit Gathering Island to discuss with Tiankong Laozu. So, Qianyuan City is still under Mara's siege, and the various forces under the Northern Alliance, as well as the many islands that Mara swept through, have all fallen into chaos because they lost the restraints of the Northern Alliance? Jiang Tianlin Laozu came from the North Sea, so he was much more informed than Lu Ping and Tiankong Laozu, who were trapped in the 5 islands of Phantom Spirits. That's right. Now the old territories of the Northern Alliance are in chaos. Many overseas forces have secretly intervened, either openly or secretly, to steal the various training resources left by the Northern Alliance, and to take over the businesses of the various forces under the Northern Alliance. ever since Yi Laozu fell and Hanya Laozu led his people away, taking with him a large number of training resources that the Northern Alliance had accumulated over thousands of years. The three leaves of the Northern Alliance that used to dominate the East Sea is now only Gui Yi Laozu, and he alone is holding the fort. Anyone with a discerning eye would know that the day Qianyuan City falls is the day the Northern Alliance dies. It is precisely because of this that the overseas training world has gathered forces to rescue the 5 islands of phantom spirits. Although they also pass by the Northern Alliance, none of the sects have proposed to rescue the Northern Alliance, even though everyone knows that as long as one treasured ship changes direction, the siege of Qianyuan City will be lifted immediately. What about our sect? What is our sect going to do? Tian Kong Laozu asked straightforwardly. Since everyone is reaping benefits, our sect naturally can't just stand by and watch. This time, you came to the East Sea not only to rescue the phantom spirits, but also for the matter of the Northern Alliance, right? After all, everything in the old territories of the Northern Alliance is just a small part, and Qianyuan City is the big one. Tian Kong Laozu paused, pointed at Lu Ping and said, "But this time, the old man won't participate. You go with this kid." Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled. "Of course, our sect will not let go of such an opportunity. Martial Uncle Tian Fan and Martial Uncle Tian Shui have already sneaked into the East Sea." Oh, Tian Kong Laozu became spirited and said, "Could it be that this time, our sect is going to snatch the food from the hands of the Crystal Palace and the 8 major sects?" When the two Laozu, Tian Fan and Tian Shui, worked together, they were not any weaker than a great cultivator. The two of them secretly sneaked into the East Sea, obviously to take a bite out of the Northern Alliance when it was being divided. At this time Lu Ping said, "This time, I'm afraid not only the Crystal Palace and the other 8 major sects, but also the monster race. Now that a large number of cultivators from the 3 major tribes and 12 races have gathered, and with the Green Sea Snakes' pure young Laozu holding the line, they will naturally get a share of the loot." After saying that, Lu Ping also told the two Laozu that the cultivators of the Northern Alliance had fallen one by one, leaving only Lin Jingtang, and that Lin Jingtang had sought help from Lu Ping. Not only that, he also passed the 300 high-grade spiritual stones to Tian Kong Laozu, and Tian Kong Laozu signaled him to pass the spiritual stones to Jiang Tianlin. Lu Ping continued, "According to Lin Jingtang's guess, the fall of Chui Laozu was the work of the 3 major tribes of the monster race, so the collapse of the Northern Alliance will definitely involve the monster race." Tian Kong Laozu's expression changed and he said, "Did Lin Jingtang escape?" Lu Ping shook his head and said, "I don't know. After all, he is a mid-Dharma adept, and we don't have enough people in Phantom City to keep an eye on him. However, he has indeed disappeared from Phantom City." Tian Kong Laozu nodded thoughtfully and said, "With the participation of the monster race, with the monster race's unruly nature, Qianyuan City will definitely be in a chaotic situation. This will give us a chance to fish in troubled waters. However, even if we can predict this situation, it's hard to guarantee that the other sects haven't. When the time comes, there will be too many wolves and not enough meat. It will still depend on strength and luck." 2 days later, Lu Ping, Jiang Tianlin, and Tian Kong Laozu returned to Jinling Island. They only stayed for a day, and Tian Kong Laozu brought a large number of spirit stones and the wind drumming technique that Lu Ping had obtained from the Phantom City Trade Fair. Jiang Tianlin Laozu originally wanted Tian Kong Laozu to continue guarding Phantom Island, while he Lu Ping and Tian Feng Laozu went to the Northern Alliance to help Tian Fan and Tian Shui. However, Tian Kong Laozu said, "Out of the 5 mid-Dharma adepts in our sect, 4 of them are in the East Sea. The North Sea is only left with brother Tian Xiang and disciple Tian Ling. In addition, they have to take care of the 2 important places, Frost Island and Scarlet Mist Island. How can they take care of everything? The battle on Phantom Island has caused great damage to the sects, so Tian Feng can take care of Phantom Island. As for the matter of the Northern Alliance, the 4 of you can go. The old man can't interfere." Jiang Tianlin Laozu was a little confused and was about to persuade him, But he saw Lu Ping shake his head slightly. He knew that there must be other reasons, so he could only let Tian Kong Laozu return to the North Sea. After Tian Kong Laozu left, both Tian Lin and Tian Feng Laozu looked at Lu Ping. Tian Feng said, "I say, disciple Lu, your uncle master has always been a lively person. How can I have the patience to stay in one place for a long time? Why do you want me to guard Phantom Island now? If you don't explain clearly, be careful that the old man doesn't tell on you behind your back." Lu Ping sighed and said, "It's not that I'm being presumptuous. It's just that Uncle Master's lifespan is up. He's returning to the North Sea to make arrangements for his funeral." Tian Lin and Tian Feng were both shocked. Tian Feng said loudly, "What? That's impossible. Uncle Master Tian Kong should have at least 40 to 50 years left in his lifespan. How can he make arrangements for his funeral so soon?" Tian Lin calmed down and immediately thought of something. He said, "But what happened on the Phantom Island?" Lu Ping nodded and told them about how Tian Kong Laozu was injured and how he refused to take the purple gold longevity pill to extend his lifespan. He then said, "The incident on the Phantom Island was just a trigger. Uncle Master actually wanted to die a long time ago. According to my estimation, Uncle Master fought with all his might in the consecutive battles. And now he has at most 20 years left in his lifespan. Uncle Master once said that the sect planned to pass the mountain-splitting axe to Uncle Master Tianshan. However, Uncle Master Tianshan is only at the early Dharma stage, so he might not be able to fully control the mountain-splitting axe. Thus, Uncle Master plans to use the last 20 years of his lifespan to condense the Dharma Power Soul." Chapter 1089. Tian Kong Laozu was going to use the remaining 20 years of his life to form a Dharma Power Soul. When this news came out of Lu Ping's mouth, the faces of Tian Lin and Tian Feng, the two Laozu brothers, were filled with shock. Unexpectedly, they did not do anything extreme or say anything. Only their eyes were filled with unconcealable grief. To form a Dharma Power Soul, at least two conditions had to be met. The first was that the practitioner had to go through at least one lightning tribulation, which was equivalent to refining the pure yang qi, in order to preserve the Dharma Power Soul for a long time. The second condition was that the practitioner had to have at least 20 years of life to ensure that the practitioner had enough life force to sustain the formation of the Dharma Power Soul until the end. Regardless of whether the formation of the Dharma Power Soul was successful or not, regardless of how much more than 20 years of life the practitioner had left, there was only one outcome for the practitioner who formed the Dharma Power Soul, and that was death. In other words, for any practitioner, forming the Dharma Power Soul was actually a form of suicide. Who would choose suicide for no reason? Even if the lifespan of a mid-Dharma adept was at most 1,200 years, and 20 years was an extremely short period of time in his life, how many people would be willing and brave enough to give up the last 20 years of their life? Forming the Dharma Power Soul was entirely up to the practitioner, and if he was unwilling, no one could force him to form the Dharma Power Soul. Those who were willing to give up the last years of their life to form the Dharma Power Soul were all practitioners who had a great sense of belonging and honor to the sect, power, and organization they belonged to, and were willing to give up some things for. Just like Tian Kong Laozu to Junling, Tian Kong Laozu was willing to give up the last 20 years of his life to form the Dharma Power Soul, because he wanted to repay the sect. He wanted to repay the sect for helping him accumulate the power to advance to the mid-Dharma Power Soul, and for helping him through the lightning tribulation and advance to the mid-Dharma Power Soul. He wanted to repay the sect for helping him get through the lightning tribulation and advance to the mid-Dharma Power Soul. The Dharma Power Soul was a different kind of inheritance, but it was also an orthodox one. It was a different kind of continuation of life. This kind of continuation existed in Jiang Tianlin, Zhang Shi, and even in Lu Ping. It was just that this continuation was not the original intention of the practitioner to form the Dharma Power Soul, but it came from the legacy of the Ying Tian sect, so they could not truly understand the true meaning of this inheritance. But now, When they were about to personally witness and experience Tian Kong Laozu's determination, their courage, and their recognition of the sect, the shock that came from their hearts was something that even their hundreds of years of knowledge and experience could not withstand. Perhaps for a sect to be able to last for thousands of generations, what they needed was this kind of dedication from the disciples they nurtured. The three of them sighed, and were no longer in the mood to discuss the Northern Alliance, so they went their separate ways. Tianfeng Laozu had already decided to guard Jingzhi Island for a period of time, while Lu Ping and Jiang Tianlin still had to make some preparations for the Northern Alliance. At this moment, the short-distance teleporter on Jingzhi Island suddenly began to flash. Only Hearing Waves Island was using this teleporter. Uncle Tianfeng. Only Ji Xianxian could make such a big fuss. Tianfeng Laozu's mood was heavy, and Ji Xuanxuan's loud shout immediately triggered a nameless fire in his heart. He immediately shouted angrily, "Shout, what are you shouting for?" The enraged voice caused the entire jolting hibernation island to tremble. Ji Xuanxuan's shout was immediately choked back in fright. Tianfeng Laozu also realized that something urgent must have happened on Hearing Waves Island for Ji Xianxian to rush over at this time. So he calmed his mind and said, "Get over here, what's the matter?" Seeing this, Tianfeng Laozu and Lu Ping also knew that something must have happened, so they put down the preparations they were doing and returned to the secret room on Jingzhi Island. When they saw Ji Xianxian, the eyes of the three Dharma adepts lit up. At this moment, Ji Xuanxuan's aura was surging around him, and it was obvious that he had already accumulated enough strength at the 9th level of core forging and could prepare to smelt the third heaven and earth spirit item. When Ji Xianxian saw Jiang Tianlin and Lu Ping, his expression became even more joyful, and his originally slightly anxious expression relaxed quite a bit. Seeing the three people's questioning gazes, Ji Xianxian hurriedly calmed down and said, "Two uncle masters, we found a Dharma adept who was washed to the beach by the tide early this morning outside Hearing Waves Island. We feel that something is strange, so we would like to invite two uncle masters over to take a look." Ji Xianxian naturally invited Tianfeng Laozu to come to Jingzhi Island, but now that Tianlin Laozu was also present, he naturally had to invite both of them together. As for Lu Ping, with their relationship, Ji Xianxian could completely ignore him. A Dharma adept who was seriously injured and on the verge of death? Now that the battle in Phantom City had just ended in the Fallen Mystery Land, the chaos in the Northern Alliance, which was closest to the Fallen Mystery Land, had caused the deaths of Dharma adepts to become somewhat common. But after all, it was a Dharma adept, and it just so happened that he had floated to Hearing Waves Island. The three of them looked at each other, and a trace of interest arose in them to go and take a look. On Hearing Waves Island, Yin Xianchu and Qi Lianying both looked as if they were facing a formidable enemy, guarding against the unconscious adept on the ground. Even though this adept's life force was continuously weakening, he was still a Dharma adept after all, and it was hard to guarantee that he would have any life-saving methods to attack at the last moment. Furthermore, this person was seriously injured and had floated along with the tide to Hearing Waves Island. What if some enemies followed any clues and found their way to Hearing Waves Island? It must be known that someone who could beat up this Dharma adept was not someone they could afford to offend. The teleporter on Hearing Waves Island was activated, and after a flash of light, Lu Ping and the others had already arrived. Tianfeng Laozu had already been to Hearing Waves Island a few times, so he could be considered to be familiar with the place. However, it was Tianlin Laozu's first time here, and he looked at everything on the island with some interest, nodding his head in approval from time to time. Although Hearing Waves Island was only a medium-sized island, the East Sea was originally wealthier than the North Sea, and the training resources in the Fallen Mystery Land were even better than those in the East Sea. In addition, with the management of Lu Ping, Xian Chu, Qi Lianying, and the others, everything on Hearing Waves Island was even better than the 36 medium-sized islands under Jinling's jurisdiction. In the North Sea, there was also an island like this, and it was even better managed than Hearing Waves Island. That was Huangli Island. It was just that Huangli Island was also managed by Lu Ping, and until now, It was under Lu Ping's control. Zhenling, from Tian Xiang Laozu to the second and third generation adepts, no one was willing or dared to compete with Lu Ping on this matter. Luckily, Lu Ping didn't have any intentions of forcibly occupying Huangli Island. Huangli Island was still an important place for Zhenling, and it was also a training ground for many 4th and 5th generation adepts. Not only that, it was also their favorite training ground, because for those who could complete the training here, the rewards would all be extremely tempting. On this point, both Lu Ping and Hu Lili were extremely generous. This was also one of the reasons why everyone in Jinling allowed Lu Ping to control Huangli Island. Even now, when he wasn't in Huangli Island, no one dared to find fault with him. And at this moment, Jiang Tianlin sensed that there was someone staring at him from afar. His senses were extremely sharp, and when he turned his head, he saw an extremely delicate and pretty girl with a hint of charm. Chapter 1090. Lu Ping pondered for a moment, then rummaged through his storage artifact. He found a dozen needle-shaped artifacts that had been left behind at some point. He then took out a jade bottle, opened it, and dipped the needle-shaped artifacts into it. When they came out, the entire artifact turned a golden color. At the same time, Lu Ping's purplish-blue inner yuan flowed under this golden color. If not for this, how could these needle-shaped artifacts not be corroded by the power of the myriad poison serum? The needle-shaped artifacts flew up one by one. Lu Ping's hands moved quickly, and in just a moment, he had stabbed the needles into different parts of Lin Jingtang's body. Ah! Lin Jingtang, who had already fallen into a coma, suddenly shook his body, and then his entire body straightened. His tightly closed eyes suddenly opened, and his eyeballs almost popped out. He let out a strange cry, and his entire body twitched violently. Drops of black blood began to seep out from his nose and ears. When the convulsions gradually stopped, Lin Jingtang's eyes also began to gradually regain their vigor, and became brighter and brighter. It was obvious that he was in the final stages of recovery. "It's you!" Lin Jingtang's gaze swept across Tianlin, Tianfeng, Xianqiu and the others. In the end, his gaze landed on Lu Ping, and a hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. Lu Ping smiled and said, "It's me. What a coincidence. I'm sure you understand the injuries on your body, so I won't say much. Hurry up. If there's anything you want to tell me, I'll try my best to do it. At least we didn't get to know each other in vain." Lin Jingtang closed his eyes slightly, then opened them again and said, "I'm at the end of my life. To be able to wake me up in such a situation, you truly are a master alchemist comparable to Yan Wujiu." Lu Ping smiled and said, "I used a secret technique. After the medicine's effects run out, you'll die for sure. There's not much time left." Lin Jingtang's expression was calm as he smiled and said, "I understand what you mean. The Northern Alliance will not be able to escape this time. I never thought that the human and demon races would actually work together on this matter. What you said earlier was right. Rather than letting the 8 major sects and the 3 major tribes take away the Northern Alliance's heritage, it's better to leave it to a medium-sized sect like Zhenling. When you rise in the future, there will definitely be conflicts of interest with these sections. I'm sure they won't be happy then, haha." At this moment, Lin Jingtang was clearly a little deranged. Lu Ping frowned slightly. He felt that he should stop him, but he was afraid that it would backfire. However, Lin Jingtang himself suddenly calmed down at this moment. He said coldly, "As long as you agree to help me kill someone, I'll tell you a secret treasure of the Northern Alliance." Don't worry, this secret treasure is extremely well hidden. It was originally jointly managed by Uncle Master Gui Chui and I. Aside from that, only the other 2 great cultivators, and an elder of the Alliance, know where the secret treasure is. However, apart from Uncle Master Gui Chui and I, no one else can take it away in a short amount of time. Lu Ping did not immediately agree. Instead, he asked, "Who do you want to kill?" Lin Jingtang suddenly smiled, and then a sliver of hatred appeared on his face. He said, "Hanya." Lu Ping was stunned, but Tianfeng Laozu had already leapt to his feet. He said, "What? Hanya? Hanya Laozu? The great cultivator from your Northern Alliance who left the alliance? Are you kidding me? How can he kill him? Lin Jingtang did not explain at all to Tianfeng Laozu's question. Instead, he laughed even harder. Like adding fuel to the fire, he revealed an even more shocking secret. Not only is he a great cultivator of the late Dharma stage, but he is also a spy that Wuxia school sent to the alliance. The reason why the alliance fell apart was because of this person. Now that he has broken out of the door, he will definitely return to the Broken Water Division of Wuxia school. Hee. Wuxia school, one of the 5 sacred grounds of Central Plains. Tianfeng Laozu stopped shouting, and everyone fell silent. Only Lin Jingtang's strange laughter could be heard as he lay on the ground. It was as if he was mocking everyone for being intimidated by Hanya Laozu's background, or as if he was mocking the destruction of the Northern Alliance. Lu Ping suddenly said, "What is in the hidden treasure?" Lin Jingtang's laughter stopped abruptly. Even Jiang Tianlin Laozu had to stop him now. He said, "Don't be rash." Lin Jingtang sat up from the ground with a whoosh, and then began to breathe heavily. Black blood dripped from his nostrils onto his clothes, but he tried his best to raise his head, so that he could look up at Lu Ping. Hee. Lin Jingtang laughed again and said, "It's a cave of inheritance, and inside it is the resting place of the Northern Alliance's alchemists. How about it? As long as you swear an oath, I will immediately tell you the location of this cave, and give you the method to take it away." The alchemist's place of inheritance, the treasure cave. Lu Ping was stunned. When he first came to the East Sea to participate in the Northern Alliance's alchemists meeting, he was in the top 6, and had the opportunity to enter the Northern Alliance's alchemist's place of inheritance. He had also obtained great benefits from it. The black prism poison fire in his hands was originally obtained from the treasure cave. However, at that time, the treasure cave that Lu Ping had entered was in danger of collapsing. The Northern Alliance had selected so many excellent alchemists to enter it to save the various alchemists' places of inheritance in the cave. So the treasure cave that Lin Jingtang was talking about was probably the place that the Northern Alliance used to store the alchemists' places of inheritance. You are an alchemist. You should know the importance of the Northern Alliance's alchemists' resting place of inheritance. This is one of the most valuable places of inheritance in the Alliance. This time, Lin Jingtang was afraid that Lu Ping would give up, so he continued. Moreover, the old man does not want you to kill Hanya now. After all, that guy is a late Dharma adept. But if you have the chance in the future, you must kill him. He betrayed the Northern Alliance, and betrayed Uncle Guiyi. It's a pity that Uncle Guiyi was possessed, and became a partner with him. He did not listen to Uncle Chuye's advice at all. Otherwise, he would not have come to this. Lin Jingtang's words were still very clear at first, but towards the end, his consciousness began to blur. Many secrets about the Northern Alliance began to be revealed by him, but his words were not very clear. Although Lu Ping was also very interested in these secrets, Lin Jingtang's condition was obviously getting worse. Until now, he still had not told him the secret of opening and collecting the Heaven's Cave of Inheritance. Lu Ping quickly interrupted him and said, "All right, I promise you that I will take Hanya Laozu's life as a sacrifice to you in the future. Now, you can just tell me the location of the Heaven's Cave of Inheritance, as well as the method of opening and collecting it." Lin Jingtang's eyes brightened slightly, and he reluctantly told Lu Ping all this. After that, his consciousness became a little unclear again, and he continued to say, there was an easier way to open and collect the cave, which was a second tribulation spiritual treasure in Junior Master Chui's hand. Hanya betrayed the Northern Alliance. Now it seems that Chui Laozu's speculation was probably correct, that Hanya came for that spiritual treasure. It was said that the spiritual treasure was left by Shui Laozu, the founder of the Water Break branch of Wuxia School. It was not only the spiritual treasure that was most suitable for the divine sense of Water Break, but it also contained a big secret of the Water Break branch. However, Wuxia School sneered at this. Now it seems that all the disdain that Wuxia School put on was just to cover up. The spiritual treasure must contain the secret of the Water Break branch of Wuxia School. Unfortunately, Junior Master Guiyi didn't believe Junior Master Chui's advice, and listened to Hanya's words. thinking that it was Junior Master Chui's slander to his rival in love. Fortunately, even though Junior Master Chui offended Junior Master Guiyi, he didn't give the spiritual treasure in his hand to Hanya. If Hanya returned to Wuxing school, not only would he return empty-handed, but he would also damage the reputation of Wuxing school. Lin Jingtang's consciousness was growing fainter and fainter. Chapter 1091. Jinling did not have a complete and huge inheritance of alchemists like the Northern Alliance, not to mention using a superior Grotto Heaven magic treasure to accommodate all kinds of inheritance tests left behind by past alchemists. This kind of inheritance test could often choose the most suitable alchemist to inherit the alchemist's legacy, which would also allow the alchemist to go further and higher in the future. Since the founding of Jinling, even in the most glorious era of Taishan Laozu, there had never been such a grand occasion like now where there were 3 alchemists at the same time. Not to mention that in addition to these 3 alchemists, Jinling also had 8 or 9 master alchemists. Many cultivators in the North Sea believed that the reason why Jinling was able to rise so quickly was that Jinling had the most powerful alchemist group in the North Sea, which could provide sufficient alchemy for the entire Jinling. As the person in charge of the entire Jinling Pill Pavilion, Tianlu Laozu naturally had the idea of establishing a perfect alchemist inheritance system. To realize this idea, a very important reason was to have a Grotto Heaven that was specially used to bury alchemists, so that the inheritance tests set by these alchemists could be completely preserved. Tianlu Laozu, who had already reached the end of his life, was now thinking about this. As the other 2 alchemists with the highest status in Jinling, Tianqin Laozu and Lu Ping, naturally knew what Tianlu Laozu was thinking. Unfortunately, a Grotto Heaven magic treasure was not so easy to obtain. Originally, Jiang Tianlin Laozu had obtained a full void treasure restriction in a secret place in the Ying Tian sect. It was a rare Grotto Heaven magic treasure that had smelted 8 treasures, and its quality was even higher than the Jade Cave Grotto Heaven. It was an ideal magic treasure to carry the inheritance. Unfortunately, this magic treasure was obviously used as a spiritual herb garden. So Tianlu Laozu was naturally reluctant to destroy the spiritual herb garden to build a place of inheritance. Now that he was presented with such a great opportunity to obtain the North Alliance's alchemist's legacy mystic treasure, Lu Ping didn't even hesitate to swear an oath to kill a great cultivator. Hundreds of miles away from Qianyuan City, above the sea, Lu Ping and Jiang Tianlin covered their faces and flew all the way there. They landed on a deserted reef. Along the way, even with their level of cultivation, the 2 of them were still on tenterhooks. Early Dharma, mid-Dharma, late Dharma, humans, demons, all kinds of auras appeared within the range of their divine will from time to time. This caused the 2 of them to have to carefully avoid all kinds of intertwining divine will auras, deeply afraid that they would provoke something powerful. This time, the Northern Alliance was really doomed. He turned to Tian Fan Laozu and asked, "Martial uncles, how's your harvest this time?" Tian Fan Laozu's expression was grave as he replied, "It can be considered that we've gained something. It's just that the various powers that have entered the Northern Alliance's territory are very complicated. Many of the powers that originally belonged to the Northern Alliance have been wiped out. Fortunately, these powers that have entered the Northern Alliance are mostly hiding their heads, but showing their tails. They have a tacit understanding with each other, restraining each other. As a result, there weren't any major conflicts. Your martial aunt Tian Shui, and I managed to gain some benefits." After Tian Shui Laozu took Lu Ping's bottle of pills for himself, he didn't seem to be embarrassed at all. His expression was normal as he said, "This time, we've gained something from the Northern Alliance's territory. In this Qianyuan city, we're just helping out a little. The water inside is too deep. Along the way, we've already met 4 to 5 late Dharma realm cultivators auras. How many did we not discover? These people are all people with powerful backgrounds. Our Jinling city cannot be compared to them." When Jiang Tianlin heard that, he laughed bitterly and said, "This time, I'm afraid that even if we don't fight with these powerful sects, we won't be able to. Seeing the two's questioning gazes, Jiang Tianlin told them about Lin Jingtong's matter to Laozu. Tianshui Laozu looked at Lu Ping and muttered, "As expected, he's a lucky kid. He even managed to get his hands on a second tribulation spiritual treasure. However, the Wuxia school is still a problem. We need to plan properly." Tian Fan Laozu muttered to himself for a moment. His expression revealed a trace of ruthlessness as he said, "This risk is worth taking. Not to mention that the Northern Alliance's hidden heavenly abode is hidden very well. In the entire Northern Alliance, only a few people know about it. Even if it's discovered by someone, as long as it's not pure Yang Laozu, your martial aunt Tian Shui, and I can join hands to stop them. When the time comes, the two of you can work together to obtain that hidden heavenly abode." Tian Shui Laozu also said, "If we really manage to obtain this treasure, then this trip to the Eastern Sea will be considered a success. It's not suitable for us to participate in the matters of the Northern Alliance. No matter what kind of treasure we come across, we just need to let it go. This way, we don't want to be too greedy and attract the attention of others." Since they had already decided on a plan, the four of them concealed themselves and started to approach Heaven Essence City. By then, Heaven Essence City had fallen into a precarious state. Mo Luo, who was outside the city, was furiously attacking the great array protecting the island. Due to that, several openings had been opened up. Although the cultivators from Heaven Essence City managed to seal up the openings several times, the cultivators inside Heaven Essence City had suffered from serious casualties. Of course, with the island's protective formation, Mara's army had suffered heavy casualties. However, Mara's army did not retreat and continued to attack Heaven Essence City. Within the Heaven Essence Palace, Hongyi Laozu was reporting something to a beautiful woman in her 30s worriedly. After which she said, "Currently, the situation on Heaven Essence Island is like this. Senior sister, after this battle, our Northern Alliance can be considered to have been removed from the list of large sections. You must hold on. As long as you are here, our Northern Alliance still has hope to rise again." The beautiful woman in her 30s was the famous female grand cultivator in the entire East Sea, one of the famous 3 leaves of the Northern Alliance. Rose Fairy Guiyi Laozu. Guiyi Laozu's expression was slightly sad. After hearing Hongyi Laozu's words, she smiled sadly and said, "Rise again? Junior brother Hongyi, do you really think that's possible?" Hongyi Laozu's expression also showed a trace of disappointment, but she immediately became excited and said, "Why not? The biggest weakness of our Northern Alliance is that we have only realized the importance of establishing an independent inheritance system very late. Moreover, the independent inheritance system has never been able to strengthen and become the support of the entire Northern Alliance. It is extremely easy for foreign independent cultivators to become members of the Northern Alliance. Many of them come with their skills, but few are loyal to the sect. Many of them form cliques, but few of them actually do things." Hongyi Laozu became more and more excited as she spoke. Now that senior brother Yi Chu has died, and Master Hanya has also broken out of the sect, the 2 greatest representatives of the Northern Alliance have been removed one after another. Who can shake your authority? Although the Northern Alliance has been greatly weakened, senior sister, you are the only true grand cultivator of the Northern Alliance. Now is the time for you to clean up the sect and bring the inheritance system of the Northern Alliance to greater heights. That way, as long as we have a few hundred years, the Northern Alliance might be able to rise again." Guiyi Laozu smiled and said, "Junior brother Hongyi, what you said makes sense, but you have overlooked something. Do you think the other sects or even the demons will give us this chance?" "What?" Hongyi Laozu was shocked. Then, she thought of something and said in shock, Could it be? Rumble crack. The entire Qinyuan hall was shaking. Hongyi Laozu cried out, "Impossible, how can the island's protective formation be broken? We have almost exhausted Mara's army. They don't have the ability to break the formation. Hoo-hoo." Chapter 1092. From the very beginning, the Northern Alliance had already sown the seeds of disintegration. The reason for the Northern Alliance's founding was very simple. It was to find a way out for the large number of lone practitioners who had gathered in the northern region of the East Sea training world. The so-called Northern Alliance was just an alliance of lone practitioners in the northern seas. It was precisely because of the founding purpose of the Northern Alliance that the Northern Alliance adhered to the spirit of all rivers run into the sea, all flowers bloom together, and constantly absorbed the elites among the lone practitioners. It was also because of this reason that the Northern Alliance had only been founded 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, from a loose alliance of lone practitioners, under the influence of the Crystal Palace, to a truly large sect. And in the thousands of years since then, the Northern Alliance had always maintained a stable development and status. At its peak, it once had 6 Dharma adepts, and at the very least, it had 3 Dharma adepts guarding Qianyuan Island. However, it was also because of this continuous absorption of elite practitioners that the Northern Alliance had not been able to truly establish a complete legacy system that belonged to the Northern Alliance itself. Those practitioners who were absorbed into the Northern Alliance might have extremely high qualifications and talents, but they had a kind of alienation from the Northern Alliance. They had no feelings for the Northern Alliance at all. At most, it was a mutual exchange of interests and mutual dependence, but there was no emotional connection. There were very few people who would truly contribute all that they had learned without reservation, using it as a basis for establishing a sect and perfecting its legacy. Furthermore, most of those who did so were lone practitioners. Although they were talented, most of them had incomplete legacies, and being able to train to the late Dharma stage was already a blessing from the heavens. It would be extremely difficult to form a pure young Dharma power, and as for achieving the real soul, that was even more of a joke. There were many sects that had tens of thousands of years of legacies in the world of training, no matter big or small, but there had never been a large sect like the Northern Alliance. Since its founding, there had not been a single pure young practitioner, not even the pure young Laozu. This was also why the Northern Alliance had always been looked down upon by the major sects, and even those who were not as strong as them. The root cause was that the Northern Alliance had never sorted out a complete legacy system. These practitioners who joined the Northern Alliance midway had their own backgrounds and experiences, and they had long formed their own values. Because they did not have a sense of community, after these practitioners joined the Northern Alliance, they were naturally undisciplined, and they had formed their own selfish values after they joined the Northern Alliance. This caused them to either do whatever they wanted or fight for power and form their own factions. As time passed, the Northern Alliance's already lax rules became even more restrictive. The practitioners who joined the Northern Alliance could not differentiate between the good and the bad. Many of them had a bad reputation in the world of training, and there were even some rebellious sects who joined the Northern Alliance as a form of protection. This made the Northern Alliance even more envious and hateful, but there was nothing they could do about it. However, when the Northern Alliance finally came to an end due to their own reasons, the sects and forces who had previously endured would not mind stepping on them at this time, and artificially speed up the process. Therefore, the mountain guarding formation of Qianyuan Island was broken so abruptly without any warning. As a result, the devil army that was attacking crazily was in a trance for a moment. Then, they let out bloodthirsty roars and charged into Qianyuan City. Without the mountain protection formation to rely on, even if the Mara's army had lost enough strength, it was still not something the cultivators of the Northern Alliance could stop. The entire Qianyuan Island suddenly became a slaughterhouse. As expected, the Great Formation has been broken. Lu Ping looked at the huge island with a radius of thousands of miles from a distance. This place would soon become the target of the human and demon races, as well as dozens of small and large forces. This formation must be broken. Jiang Tianlin also said the same. Tianfan Laozu opened the folding fan in his hand with a huala sound, then slowly folded it again. He said, "Let's go, someone is moving again. We need to find the heaven's inheritance of the Northern Alliance Pill House as soon as possible." Although Mara had been exhausted by the cultivators of the Northern Alliance using the island protection formation, The Northern Alliance themselves were also exhausted. Not to mention, after a series of attacks, the morale of the Northern Alliance had long been low. When Mara suddenly attacked Qianyuan Island, both sides almost launched a mutual destruction strategy. At this time, the forces that had been lurking outside Qianyuan Island finally moved. Along the way, not only did Mara fall, but even the cultivators of the Northern Alliance died inexplicably, or the cultivators of the Northern Alliance who were fighting with Mara also died at the same time. The people who attacked were all hidden in the dark, but each of them had a high cultivation base, and their methods were more ruthless than the last. This situation was only discovered by the high-ranking cultivators of the Northern Alliance when the battle reached Qianyuan Hall. At this time, the cultivators of the Northern Alliance realized that things were developing in a direction that they could not accept. Although the remaining cultivators of the Northern Alliance were mainly cultivators cultivated by the Northern Alliance, there were still many cultivators who were originally rogue cultivators and came from small forces, but later joined the Northern Alliance. These cultivators saw that the Northern Alliance's power was lost, and that the mysterious power, hiding in the dark, was clearly trying to destroy the entire Northern Alliance. So they all shouted that they wanted to sever their ties with the Northern Alliance, praying that they could escape with their lives. Unexpectedly, these people did not get the mercy of the various forces hiding in the dark. The cultivators who came from the Northern Alliance's lineage system, under the double blow of anger and despair, cursed spineless, scum, traitor, and so on. They took the initiative to kill the cultivators of the former alliance, and in an instant, a tragic scene of mutual destruction played out in front of Qianyuan Hall. From beginning to end, the only great cultivator of the Northern Alliance, Guiyi Laozu, did not show himself, nor did he do anything to stop the slaughter. It was as if Laozu had long since abandoned his disciples. This caused the cultivators of the Northern Alliance to feel even more despair. Many of the more violent cultivators saw this, and after killing those who begged for mercy, they chose to commit suicide. The scene unfolding in front of Qianyuan Hall seemed to signal the final curtain call of the Northern Alliance. But the surroundings were still silent. Only the majestic Qianyuan Hall stood tall. Its wide entrance seemed to mock the cowardice of the cultivators hiding in the shadows. It was like a bloody maw opened wide like a sacrificial bowl. It was unknown when, but several cultivators had appeared in the square of Qianyuan Hall. They seemed to be confronting each other, or discussing something. A moment later, their feet moved in unison, and their ethereal bodies suddenly disappeared into Qianyuan Hall. Silent battles played out all over Qianyuan Island. In order to snatch everything on Qianyuan Island, many cultivators would often fight each other for something they wanted. However, these fights often lasted only for a moment. Everyone knew that now was not the time to fight, but the time to snatch. They would not fight to the death for a single treasure, nor would they lose the chance to obtain more treasures. Lu Ping's group of 4 rushed through Qianyuan Island. Along the way, the 4 of them had fought several unfamiliar cultivators. Fortunately, the 4 of them were not weaklings. When they moved together, their opponents would often retreat. Even if they encountered a stronger cultivator, the 4 of them would just take a detour. In any case, they were not after the treasures that others wanted, so they did not want to get into conflict with others. After a while, the 4 of them walked in a more desolate direction. Suddenly, Tianfan Laozu stopped and sniffed the breeze. He said, "Someone is going in the same direction as us. Moreover, they are in front of us." In a remote area of Qianyuan Island, there were ravines everywhere, but it was extremely desolate. At a glance, one could tell that it was a barren place with extremely few cultivation resources. At this moment, 2 black shadows were rushing through it. "Teacher, where are we going?" Immortal Qin looked at the gloomy Hongye Laozu and carefully asked. "We are looking for something that can save our lives," Hongye Laozu said with a gloomy face. "It is a pity that senior sister Guiyi has lost her mind and is unwilling to make a comeback. However, the old man wants to preserve the Qi of inheritance for the Northern Alliance." As soon as he finished speaking, an earth-shaking explosion came from the direction of Qianyuan Hall. The entire Qianyuan island was shaken by the explosion. Then there were several roars of pain, like that of a wounded beast, and a woman's sharp and mournful laughter. Hongye Laozu and Immortal Qin stopped at the same time. Hongye Laozu's face flashed with sorrow, but his voice was calm and cold. It's your senior aunt Gui Yi. She has fallen in Qianyuan Hall. Immortal Qin felt an inexplicable chill. Qianyuan Hall was one of the Northern Alliance's most important heaven's inheritance. Gui Yi Laozu would rather die in glory than live in dishonor. Sure enough, a shout was heard. Gui Yi, you're crazy. Ha 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 ha. Gui Yi Laozu's laughter sounded like a ghost crying in the dark. Didn't you want to take advantage of the situation? Why do you have to hide like this? Don't tell me I can't recognize you? Yuan Li from the Crystal Palace, Zi Yuxiao from the Purple Talisman Pavilion, Lei Jingtian from the Wind and Thunder Island, and a few from the South Sea. I didn't expect there to be a few from the Demon Clan. How can I, Gui Yi, have so many people to accompany me in death? Ha 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 ha. This woman is crazy. Let's join hands and kill her first. A loud shout was heard. A ray of light cut through the dark sky, and then more light rays rose in the night sky. Haha. Didn't you want to rob the Northern Alliance of everything? Here you go. Be careful, it's Gui Ye's second disaster spiritual treasure. Oh no, she's going to explode the spiritual treasure. Hide. Boom. A huge mushroom cloud shook the entire Qianyuan island again. There were muffled groans, screams, and curses. Gui Yi Laozu immediately turned around and said, "Let's go." There was a hint of bitterness in her voice. Gui Yi Laozu moved even faster. Immortal Qin looked at the mushroom cloud in the distance. It will not be a problem for me to reach your current position. So you've been in cahoots with Hanya for a long time. That's right. The talisman weapon you used to kill the old man was also left by Hanya for you. You evil disciple, you will die a horrible death. Haha, I don't know if I will die a horrible death, but master, you are really going to die now. It's too early for you to be happy. The power of a Dharma adept is not something you can understand. What is this? Intentional combat pill. Ah. In the darkness, a few rays of light suddenly appeared and then extinguished. Then, everything became quiet again. The appearance of 4 black shadows suddenly broke the silence of the night. Looking at the 2 people lying on the ground, one of them suddenly said in surprise, "So it's these 2 people. Who are they?" A woman's voice asked. That old man is the alchemist of the Northern Alliance, Hongye Laozu. The other one is his disciple surnamed Qin. He is also an alchemist. It's just an internal conflict between master and disciple. Alright, it's more important to find the cloudy mist bottle. It was Lu Ping and the others. According to Lin Jingtang, the North Alliance's alchemist's grotto heaven of inheritance was placed here by progenitor Chu Yi. The name of the grotto heaven was the Crimson Meteor Vase. It's here. Jiang Tianlin was the first to discover the clues. However, when the rest of them walked to the front, they all frowned. The main body of the cloudy mist bottle was only a 3-foot-tall bottle with a thin neck. However, it was currently imprisoned in the swamp, leaving only a 3-inch-tall bottle mouth. The rest of the bottle was buried in the swamp filled with all kinds of poisons. Tianfan Laozu examined it carefully and said, "There are at least 4 earth veins restricting the bottle's body. The moment we try to break free, the bottle will overturn in the swamp. All sorts of poisonous substances and mud will enter the cave inheritance from the bottle opening. It's enough to destroy all the inheritances in the cave inheritance." Tian Shui Laozu also said, "According to Lin Jingtang's direction, although we can safely retrieve this cave inheritance, it will take too long. Right now, the entire Qianyuan island is like a night parade of 100 ghosts. We are only ahead by a step because of our foresight. Once we hesitate, it's hard to guarantee that others won't find this place." Tian Shui Laozu said that the current Qianyuan island was like a night parade of 100 ghosts. However, she didn't know that she was also one of the 100 ghosts. A golden light flashed in Lu Ping's hand, and a pair of scissors appeared in his hand. "If there's no other way, we can only use this method to remove the firewood from the bottom of the cauldron." We will forcefully cut off the earth veins that are restricting the spiritual treasure. The mantis appeared on Lu Ping's arm, and a pair of large blades waved majestically. Finally, it's my turn to appear. You guys can be at ease. No matter what kind of earth veins or spiritual veins it is, we will just cut them off. Why does this place look so familiar? Have I been here before? Jiang Tianlin Laozu nodded his head. That's the only thing we can do to prevent any unforeseen events. The two martial uncles and I will open this cave inheritance, and you will take the opportunity to cut off the earth veins that are restricting the cave inheritance. This way, it will definitely cause a huge commotion, but it will also buy us some time. As long as we can escape before the people on the island can react, this trip to Qianyuan Island will be considered a success. Jiang Tianlin, Tian Fan and Tian Shui. The three Laozu used all kinds of divine abilities to seal the mouth of the jade bottle. After that, the three of them looked at each other and said, "Rise." The three of them exerted their strength at the same time, and the cloudy mist bottle was lifted up. Within the swamp, with the cloudy mist bottle as the center, four bulges appeared, firmly restricting the cloudy mist bottle. Even with the three middle phase Laozu's combined strength, they were still unable to move the cloudy mist bottle out of the swamp. The entire poisonous mist swamp immediately boiled, and a dull rumbling sound echoed from afar, causing the entire ground to tremble. Quick, there will be people coming over soon. Lu Ping held the golden water cutting scissors in his hand and used it to cut one of the earth veins. Two rays of golden light shot into the swamp, intersecting with each other. Pung! Just like a rope being forcefully pulled apart, the earth veins were cut off, and the bulging ground once again sank, leaving behind a 10 feet wide and 10 feet deep trench that extended far into the night. Not good. The others will follow the trench and chase us here. Quickly cut! Jiang Tianlin Laozu saw that the situation was far from good, and hurriedly urged Lu Ping to act as soon as possible. Lu Ping's expression turned solemn, and the true yuan in his body surged like a surging river. The vigorous true yuan unceasingly poured into the scissors. Pung! 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 3 earth veins were cut off by the spiritual treasure in Lu Ping's hand, and a muffled pung sound rang out. Lu Ping then heard Tian Fan and Tian Shui Laozu shout, "Not good." After losing the restriction of 4 earth veins, the cloud mist vase actually broke free from the 3 Laozu's restriction and flew into the sky. A straight jade pillar of light shot into the sky from the ground, where the cloud mist vase was located. It was actually a large spirit vein. Just now, the cloud mist vase was condensed by the spirit energy of this large spirit vein, and it broke free from the 3 Laozu's restriction and was sent flying into the sky. This cloud mist vase was actually suppressing a large spirit vein. At this moment, Lu Ping no longer had the time to think about the reason. The commotion in the poison mist swamp had already alarmed the entire Qianyuan Island. Numerous rays of light rose from all directions, flying towards the cloud mist vase. In the dark, there were still many cultivators who were unwilling to reveal their identities. Tian Fan, Tian Shui, and Tian Lin, the 3 Laozus simultaneously flew towards the cloud mist vase. However, in the night sky, a black long whip suddenly lashed out. It was faster than the 3 Laozus as it lashed towards the cloud mist vase. "Thief, you dare!" Tian Fan Laozu shouted angrily. In his hand, a cold wind had already slashed towards the night sky. Immediately after, Tian Shui Laozu raised his hand, and a silver-white fog exploded in midair. That black long whip suddenly condensed a lot of ice crystals, causing it to become abnormally stiff. In an instant it lost its original flexibility. At this moment, 2 golden rays of light crossed each other in midair. This black long whip was, after all, a peak-grade spirit-nurturing treasure. However, in an instant, it was cut into 2 by the golden rays. The half of the long whip that was wrapped around the cloud mist vase immediately fell to the ground. With a flash of light, the cloud mist vase was already in the hands of Jiang Tianlin and Laozu. In the blink of an eye, the 4 of them had not only seized back the treasure, they had also destroyed their opponent's treasure and inflicted heavy injuries on them. 2 groans could be heard from the darkness. Clearly, they had received a blow from Tian Shui Laozu, as well as the damage to their internal organs due to the destruction of their treasures. The treasure has been cut into two. Chu Yi Laozu's treasure has actually landed in your hands. A cultivator's frightened voice could be heard from the darkness. Due to his injuries, he seemed to be out of breath. Tian Shui Laozu was about to pounce towards the darkness to silence that person. However, she was pulled back by Tian Fan Laozu. Hurry up and leave. If we don't leave now, it will be too late. The spiritual chi pillar that soared into the sky was like an extremely conspicuous coordinate. It had already attracted more and more cultivators over. To be able to cause such a huge commotion, even an idiot would know that there must be a treasure of the Northern Alliance hidden here. Furthermore, that person's shout had been heard by many people. The treasure had been cut into two. Was it the second tribulation spiritual treasure that Wuxia School's Duanshui lineage had left behind and was obtained by Chu Yi Laozu? Just this piece of news was enough to attract the attention of the people on Qianyuan Island. Back then, when Chu Yi Laozu had perished on the illusionary spirit island, his second tribulation spiritual treasure had mysteriously disappeared. Chapter 1094. Before the four of them left, Lu Ping waved his hand and brought the heavily injured and unconscious Hong Yi Laozu into the Golden House. Then, he transmitted a message to Samling to guard him. Even though Hong Yi Laozu was a Dharma cultivator, he was still an alchemist who could even plot against his own sect's disciple. With Samling's current cultivation, not to mention that he was heavily injured, even if he fully recovered, he might not be a match for Samling. When Tian Shui Laozu saw how Lu Ping was acting, she couldn't help but grumble. What's the point of bringing him along? This fellow is a diehard member of the Northern Alliance. When the time comes, it's fine if he doesn't submit to our sect. But if everyone knows about it, our sect won't be able to bear the consequences. Lu Ping replied, Granduncle might not know this, but when I participated in the Northern Alliance's elixir gathering back then, it could be said that I received this person's grace. Furthermore, this person is the chief alchemist of the Northern Alliance. There's no harm in saving him. As he spoke, Lu Ping took Immortal Qin's storage artifact from the ground and used his divine sense to scan the artifact. After that, he took out a high-grade alchemy furnace and said, Not bad. Tian Shui Laozu recalled that the old man was an alchemist grandmaster. Looking at the high-grade alchemy furnace in Lu Ping's hand, she said, Since that's the case, bring him away first. If he doesn't submit, we can only kill him. Leaving him alive will bring disaster to the sect sooner or later. Gui Yi Laozu had perished in the Northern Alliance's most important inheritance secret land, Qianyuan Cave. He had also perished in the explosion of his second tribulation spiritual treasure. In the end, when he tried to destroy the giant spiritual vein on Qianyuan Island, he was finally surrounded and killed by the great cultivators of the various sections. However, even so, it was enough for all the sects to fly into a rage. This time, the various sects had come to divide up the Northern Alliance. From their point of view, everything in the Northern Alliance no longer belonged to the Northern Alliance. Instead, it was the private property of the various sections. The destruction of the Qianyuan Cave, the explosion of the second tribulation spirit treasure, the self-destruction of Gui Yi Laozu, did not damage the giant spirit vein on Qianyuan Island, but it had caused the spirit vein to leak. In addition, Gui Yi Laozu had suffered heavy injuries and fallen cultivators during his self-destruction. This greatly reduced the benefits that the various sects had imagined. In their eyes, Gui Yi Laozu's actions were akin to cutting their flesh. Therefore, when they suddenly discovered that outside of their tacit agreement, there was actually a group of people who had actually evaded their control and snatched a treasure from Qianyuan Island, these people were furious. There was someone who wanted to be the Oriole behind the various sects of the human and demon races. What guts he had! More and more cultivators headed towards the poison fog swamp. Fortunately, the friar had been heavily injured by the four of them previously. At this moment he no longer dared to follow them. Furthermore, the soaring spiritual chi light pillar had attracted the attention of many people. Therefore, When the four of them quietly flew out of the poison fog swamp, they did not attract the attention of others. At this moment, Jiang Tianlin Laozu suddenly said, "That's not right. At this moment, everyone is heading towards the poison fog swamp. Only the four of us are heading outwards. It's very easy for others to notice us." Tian Shui Laozu said, "Then should we head back?" Tian Fan Laozu said, "The risk is too high. Let's change our direction and split into two groups. One group will be in front while the other group will be behind. Just now we met the friar. He will definitely leak our information. Our group of four will be noticed immediately." Just as Tian Fan Laozu's voice faded, they suddenly heard someone shouting from behind, "Over here! Someone come quickly!" The four of them were instantly startled. The wind snow fans, the wooden block, and the formless water nether sword. These four rank 1 spiritual treasures simultaneously shot towards the source of the voice. The person in the darkness originally had an extremely powerful stealth secret technique. However, a single sentence from him had exposed his location. Seeing 4 rays of light flickering with intense spiritual fluctuations shooting towards him, the person only had time to say, "For spiritual treasures? What kind of joke is this?" Following which, after a loud explosion, there was no more sound. The four of them didn't dare to speak anymore. The cloudy mist vase returned to Tian Shui Laozu's hands. Tian Shui and Tian Fan Laozu took the lead to change their direction and began to sneak out of the island. As for Lu Ping and Jiang Tianlin, they followed the general direction of the two of them. Right at this moment, in the northwest direction of Qianyuan Island, there was a sudden tremor. When Lu Ping and Jiang Tianlin looked towards the direction where the sound came from, they saw a soaring light flame lighting up in the northwest direction. Intense waves of spiritual qi fluctuated in all directions from the flickering light flame. Obviously, there were people fighting there. Lu Ping and Jiang Tianlin looked at each other. Both of them could see a trace of rejoicing in each other's eyes. Obviously, the battle happening there would greatly reduce the possibility of Lu Ping and the others being discovered. However, before the two of them could finish rejoicing, a series of loud sounds rang out from the surroundings of Qianyuan Island. The sounds of fighting, killing, cursing, and miserable shrieks filled the sky. The entire Qianyuan Island, which had originally sunk into a strange silence, suddenly flared up. Due to fighting over everything left behind by the Northern Alliance on Qianyuan Island, the various powers of the human and demon races had finally lost control. The greed in their hearts caused the different powers to start fighting over one or more treasures. Furthermore, due to the arrival of reinforcements from both sides, the fighting escalated to the point of killing each other for treasures. The entire Qianyuan Island instantly became lively. As one of the few large sects in the overseas region, although the inheritance system of the Northern Alliance had various drawbacks, the overall strength of the Northern Alliance over the past thousands of years was unquestionable. Therefore, the thousands of years of foundation and accumulation of management inevitably caused Qianyuan Island, the headquarters of the Northern Alliance, to hide too many treasures of the Northern Alliance. The human and demon races may have a tacit understanding with each other in certain areas, such as the Northern Alliance's famous inheritance treasures, or Qianyuan City and so on. But other areas, they couldn't be involved in all aspects, and it was impossible for them to be involved in all aspects. This was also the reason why Lu Ping's group was able to sneak into Qianyuan Island so easily. Even if they were discovered, they were still able to shake off their pursuers. The greater cultivators, and the more important mid-stage cultivators, had already gathered at the most important locations in the North Alliance. They were discussing how to divide the spoils among themselves. They couldn't care less about the leftovers. The chaos on Qianyuan Island also gave Lu Ping and the others a chance to regroup and break out of Qianyuan Island. After all, at this time, no one had time to care about the four of them. As long as the four of them were careful and did not participate in the battle for treasures, no one would find trouble with the four of them for no reason. However, the four of them carefully stayed away from the whirlpool of fighting, but it did not mean that the battle would not come to them. 2 streaks of light came towards the four of them one after the other. It was obvious that the first group was fleeing, while the second group was chasing. Seeing that the situation was not right, Jiang Tianlin shouted anxiously, "Quickly dodge!" The four of them immediately dodged the two streaks of light. The first group of streaks of light passed by the four of them, while the second group was about to catch up. However, an item was suddenly thrown out from the first group of people, landing on Lu Ping and the others. Among the streaks of light in front, one of them cried out in surprise, "Senior brothers and sisters, we will lure them away. You all can bring this item back to the sect." Lu Ping and the others hastily retreated. Tian Fan Laozu said anxiously, "This item has nothing to do with us. Whoever wants it, just take it." However, it was already too late. A few people separated from the last group of people and rushed towards the four of them without any explanation. At the same time, two more people jumped out from the streaks of light and tried to snatch the item that had just landed. Tian Shui Laozu scolded, "Are you guys stupid? Didn't you hear us say that this item has nothing to do with us? Can't you see through such a simple trick to sow discord?" However, the four of them had no choice but to retaliate. In order to not escalate the conflict, the four of them used hand gestures and were suppressed by the 6 cultivators in front of them. However, very quickly, Lu Ping and the others discovered that the situation was not as they had imagined. After the 6 people in front of them snatched the item that had been thrown out by the first group of people, not only did they not retreat, they even increased their attacks because of the 4 of them's passive resistance. This was akin to treating the 4 of them as fat sheep, wanting to reap some benefits from them. Tian Shui Laozu's anger was overflowing. Seeing that the group of people had already chased after the first group of people, and there was no one else in the surroundings, she immediately said, "This old lady has had enough. You 3 men still want to continue acting?" Just as she finished speaking, Jiang Tianlin Laozu had already taken the initiative to attack. However, even though he was fast, Lu Ping was even faster. The cultivator who was fighting with Lu Ping saw that Lu Ping's cultivation was the lowest. Thus, he used the attitude of a cat toying with a mouse to fight with Lu Ping. Lu Ping had long been suppressing his anger. Furthermore, he had already set up a death trap for the people in front of him. Just as Jiang Tianlin Laozu took the initiative to attack, Lu Ping's thin flowing water sword suddenly increased in brightness. Under the panicked gaze of the cultivator in front of him, he counterattacked. Just as the friar was clumsily blocking Lu Ping's attack, which had suddenly increased in power by several times, before he could recover from his shock, the spectral aqua sword had already silently neared his neck. The person in front of him was after all a mid-dharma adept. His intuition, honed by life and death situations, quickly detected the danger. His body abruptly leaned to the side, and the spectral aqua sword slashed across, creating an extremely deep wound on the cultivator's shoulder. However, who was Lu Ping? He was someone who could seriously injure the Jade Shura in a head-on battle. Since when would he take a mid-dharma adept seriously? Just as the cultivator dodged to the side, a small person about a foot tall appeared in front of him. The person's facial features actually bore some resemblance to the early Dharma adept that he had fought with earlier. External incarnation.